Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today, we have an exciting what if story for you. If you enjoy these kinds of videos and want to see more, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. What if Sasuke never left the village? Now, let's get started. Sasuke shifted in bed as a beam of light hit his eyes. He didn't remember leaving the shades open. Trying to lift his hand to shield his eyes, a pain shot through him. What the hell just happened? He slowly opened his eyes and sat up, trying to avoid any more pain. He looked around and saw that he was in a hospital room. Looking out the window he saw that he was back in Konoha, his home village. How in the world did he get here? His eyes scanned the room until he saw a head of pink hair underneath a blanket that lay crumbled on the couch across from his bed. He watched it shift and move until it moaned and popped out slowly. A pair of arms followed as if they were stretching, and then he heard a small yawn. That's when she turned to face him, her green eyes met his and she smiled. Sakura. The blanket fell to her waist as she sat up, exposing her body to him, wrapped in a small black tank top that lifted and showed her chest off perfectly, the shirt several inches above her navel. Sasuke had to mentally slap himself for thinking that. He couldn't help it, as she stood, the blanket then fell to the ground, exposing even more of her. On her lower half she wore matching black shorts that left nothing to the imagination. I was beginning to wonder when you would wake up. Her steps were soft and soundless as she made her way to his bed. Her arms suddenly went around him, her head nestled into the crook of his neck. Never scare me like that again, do you hear me? I don't know what I would do without you. Her voice was almost breaking. She pulled away and smiled. I know you must be really tired, and now that you're awake, I guess I will go get Tsune to come look at you and then go pick up the kids. She reached for her neck and placed pressure on it, sleeping on that couch messed up my neck. She turned and walked back to where she had been, she removed what appeared to be a long red coat, slipping her arms into it. It turned out to be sleeveless and reached her ankles. Her short hair bounced as she straightened the coat and zipped it up, and that's when he saw it was not a coat but the top of her shirt. The zipper began a few inches above her navel, revealing her taut stomach just as the shirt below had, and ended at the collarbone. He couldn't help but continue to watch her as she sat and placed her long boots that reached just below her knees. When she stood, he couldn't help but stare at how tempting she looked. Everything she wore was meant to distract and draw the eyes. She walked over to him again and without a word, kissed him softly on the lips for a brief second. He had no chance to react as she turned with a wave, I'll bring the kids by later if you are feeling better. Get plenty of rest. And once her full back was to him, that is when he saw it. The Uchiha fan was neatly printed on the back of her shirt inside the white circle that she normally wore. What the hell was going on? What the hell was going on? How had he ended up here? Sasuke was completely lost, and his body was too sore to even get up. Sakura was here and apparently stayed the night with him and was wearing the symbol of his family on her clothing. She had also mentioned kids. His first thought was that he had somehow been found and captured and brought back here against his will, but if that had been the case, wouldn't security on him have been tighter, and that did not explain Sakura's actions. The only other explanation would be that the stupid stone actually worked. He was not in his time anymore. He had never thought it would actually take him to another time. The time in which he had never betrayed his village, a time where he and Sakura were married and had kids apparently. What else was different about this time? Suddenly he heard screaming in the hallway, I said I would get to it, just let me see this patient and then we can go. He remembered that voice. And that's when Tsunade walked in with a huff of breath, I really needed a drink. She looked up at him and smiled, Sakura told me you had finally woken up. How are you feeling today? Sasuke said the only thing that came to his mind, I'm fine. A little sore, but fine. Should he act like Sasuke from this time or act like himself? She smiled again, that's good, the soreness should be gone by tomorrow. You just got hit on the head pretty bad. At least that's what your team told me. You got distracted when the enemy hit Sakura. I personally think it's a bad idea that you both go on missions together, but you all refuse to be separated. I still hope that one day you all will listen to me and at least consider working with someone outside the Rookie 9. She picked up his chart and continued talking, I mean, I still don't even know why you guys are called the Rookie 9, none of you are rookies anymore. Most of you are above Anbu status. She seemed to be talking to herself near the end of her little speech. Sasuke had no interest. He was too busy trying to figure out what he should be doing. What would happen if he tried to explain what had happened, should he run? Maybe he could stay for a while and just pretend. He had always been curious at what life could have been like if he had stayed. He wondered if he had the same strength as before. So he would pretend he was Sasuke from this time, at least for the time being. Well, you just need some rest and I assume Sakura will come by later with the kids. I think that's best. Haru still needs another checkup and his shots. She placed the chart back and met his eyes once more, I'll let you rest then. I know you wanted to deal with the family. She gave a small wave and turned to leave the room and let it shut behind her. So he had been right about them being married with kids. The question was, how many and what were their names? One was named Haru, but all other information had not been given. Sakura was going to bring them by later. He only hoped he would be ready for them. Sasuke let himself sleep and woke to the sound of knocking on the door and a familiar voice. "You guys promised me you would behave, didn't you?" Then two voices he didn't recognize spoke together, "Yes, mommy." "Now, remember that daddy is tired and is still trying to get better, so we will not yell, and our visit is going to be short, do you understand?" Then another, "Yes, mommy." Sasuke strained to sit up, it was easier than it had been before, "Come in." Let's see if he was ready for this. He was a shinobi, gathering information he needed should be quite easy. The door swung open and a child no older than 6 ran up to the bed, "Dad." He was amazed. This child could have been him when he was a child. The same raven spikes covered his head and the same onyx eyes. The child clung to the bed sheets and looked up at him. "Dad, Shikamaru-sensei said that I was the best at kunai throwing today just like you were when you were a kid." Sasuke didn't know why, but he felt a little hint of pride. "That's great, son." He turned to see Sakura had stepped into the room with a child no older than 2. This child had short black hair that hung around his face, but as he neared, Sasuke saw that he had the same piercing emerald eyes as his mother. And their mother had his attention as well. She wore the same thing she had when she left earlier that day. If his information was correct, they were 28, married with 2 kids. And yet she dressed and looked like she was still in her teens. Her body had recovered in excellent shape after the birth of the kids. He tried to shake those thoughts of his wife and tried to make sense of everything. Judging by the age of the kids, this meant that they had their first child in their early 20s. He still was left in a hazy picture of his life. He needed more information. The only other information he had was that the lazy cloud watcher was now teaching at the academy. Sakura smiled, Haru missed his daddy very much, she turned to the boy in her arms, "Didn't you, Haru?" At least now Sasuke knew which one was Haru, but he still had yet to learn the name of his other son. The boy smiled, "Yes." He reached for Sasuke and Sasuke did the natural thing a father would do, he took the boy and placed him in his lap. The young Uchiha gave him a hug. "Now Haru, we still have an appointment with Tsunade." She placed a hand on their eldest child, "Why don't you stay here with your father, Akira?" "Alright, mom." He smiled up at her. She turned back to Sasuke and the child in his lap, "Come on Haru, let's not keep Grandma Tsunade waiting." She picked up the boy from his lap and let him rest on her hip. She looked like a real mother with their son in her arms. "We will see you boys later, this shouldn't take long." Sakura turned to leave and the boy turned to face them and gave a smile and a small wave. Sasuke couldn't believe this. He had 2 sons, the eldest, Akira who now sat on the bed with him and the youngest, Haru. This was amazing. He turned back to the eldest who smiled up at him, "Dad, do you think I'll ever be a great shinobi like you and Uncle Naruto? Shikamaru-sensei says I'm just like you, except without the attitude." Sasuke didn't know how to be a father, his own wasn't the greatest in supporting him, and he didn't have many years with him. Sasuke gave the child a small smile and patted him on the head, just as Kakashi had done to him, "You will be a great shinobi." He didn't know what else to say to the child. The day he was to be released. Sasuke dressed in new clothes that he had been given. A black long-sleeved shirt and a pair of black pants tucked into black shinobi sandals. The Uchiha fan was printed neatly on the back of the shirt he wore. He sat himself down on the bed and thought about everything that had happened. He had met Naruto as well. He lay on the bed, still with 1 day to go until he would be released from the hospital. The door burst open and in came "Team, Sakura told me that you were okay, I would have come to see you sooner, but she wouldn't let, something about you needing rest." He yelled. Sasuke looked over at the shinobi he had seen as his rival, he had grown into a fine man. His first instinct was to kill him, but then remembered that he was a different Sasuke in this time, the Sasuke and Naruto of this time were still good friends and teammates. Sasuke glared at him, "Quiet down, dope. The last thing I need is to hear you yelling." Naruto crossed his arms, "Well, Sakura isn't here to protect you so I can yell all I want." That is when she walked in and stood behind the blonde shinobi, a look of anger on her face. Sasuke wouldn't have had time even if he wanted to warn Naruto before her fist met the back of his head and he went face first into the floor. "Naruto, you idiot, how many times do I have to tell you to be quiet, this is a hospital, not a playground." She then smiled up at him, "How are you feeling today?" He shrugged his shoulders, "Alright, I suppose." She stepped over Naruto, who had yet to get up, and made her way to sit on the bed beside him. "Well, you should be released tomorrow." She placed her hand upon his and gave him another smile. Sasuke could feel the heat in his body rise with her touch. What was wrong with him? Why did he react to her? This was Sakura, annoying, weak, little Sakura. Sasuke shook his head as he recalled her. He sat on the edge of the bed and placed his shoes on when he saw the small object that lay on the table beside the bed. The small silver circle felt cool to the touch as he brought it closer to him. A ring, was it his? He examined its cool surface till he found an engraved symbol on the inside. The Uchiha crest slightly cover a blossom. His wedding band, this had to be it. He couldn't help but slip it onto his finger and stare at it. Could he really be married to Sakura? He had never imagined this. It was true, he had pictured having a family one day, but it never was with his pink-haired teammate. As if on cue the door swung open and Sakura came in, a smile grazed her lips. She walked up to him and gave him a chaste kiss to his lips. Are you ready to go? He still was not used to her touch. Yeah, let's go. She turned and he followed as she made her way down the halls to the front of the hospital. As they neared the doors, he saw his two sons sitting with the nurses at the front desk. The kids are here. He told her. She smiled and went to pick up their 2-year-old who turned and smiled, Mommy. Their eldest son, Akira, ran up to him and stopped a foot short of him. Are you all better, Dad? Sasuke had been practicing how to act in front of the kids. He couldn't let them feel that he was not the father they thought he was. He nodded, all better, nothing can keep your old man down for long. Sasuke could only say and do the things his own father had never said or done to him. Sasuke knelt down and picked up his son, placing him on his shoulders. He had the sudden thought of Itachi, how his brother would carry him on his back when they were younger. What had happened to Itachi, was he dead or alive at this time? Sasuke, let's go home. He turned to see Sakura with their son, Haru, on her hip. The scene before him made a warm unfamiliar feeling fill him. He was with his family, on his way home. Could this be happiness? Alright then, he looked up at his son, you ready, Akira? Yeah, Dad, I'm ready. And remember you promised you would start teaching me the fire-breathing jutsu. You said I could at least learn the hand signs, but no fire till I'm a little older. Sasuke couldn't help but smile, his son was learning Uchiha jutsu already. Alright then, anything else you want to work on? Sasuke listened to his son talk as best he could as they walked down the streets of Konoha. The sun was high in the sky. He felt incredibly odd, some people stared at them as they came by, but other than that, they were a normal family taking a stroll. He didn't know why he felt protective of Sakura when he saw not one, but several men stare at her as they passed. He waited till they passed the gates of the Uchiha compound, it had been so long since he had been on these grounds. They made their way to the main house, and Sasuke followed without question. Did they really live here? His question was answered soon as she opened the door and stepped in, placing their son down. Sasuke did the same, placing his son down and walking into the house. The last time he had set foot in this place. It had felt cold and empty, now it was warm and inviting. Removing his shoes at the door, he moved about the house, following his family once more. Could this really be the same house from his own time? So caught up in his thoughts, he didn't notice those around him until Sakura called out to him, Sasuke, are you hungry? I was just about to make the kids some lunch. He actually was a bit hungry. Sure, I didn't eat at the hospital. He walked into the kitchen to see Sakura facing the counter, already at work for lunch. Without even turning around she said, it will be just a little bit, why don't you go change or take a shower? The shower sounded nice. Yeah, I'll go do that. He knew that his bedroom had to be the master room that his parents once shared. Making his way down the hall, he made his way to that room and slowly turned the knob. It was nothing like he remembered. Growing up, this room had always felt empty as if it was only a place of sleep, now as he looked around. It felt like a family place. Pictures stood up on the dressers and nightstands and decorated the wall. The bed was unmade and looked inviting, but he ignored it. Sasuke picked up one of the pictures on the nightstand. Their wedding picture. He was caring for her bridal style, her arms around his neck as they shared a kiss. Sakura was dressed in a long white kimono with pink blossoms upon the end of the sleeves and gown, her hair was pinned up with chopsticks. She really was not the same girl from when they were 12. She had grown into a beautiful woman. He tried to picture her from the last time he had seen her in his time, but nothing came to him. He could only imagine her as the 15-year-old girl that came to him that one time. He admitted that he hadn't paid much attention to her at that time. Placing that picture down, his eyes were taken by one that hung on the wall nearby. The birth of one of their sons. Sakura laid in the hospital bed, a small child in her arms. Sasuke stood beside her, placing a hand on his new son's head, his eyes only on the child. Which child was this? The older one or the younger one? He could not tell. The child's eyes were closed shut as it lay sleeping in her arms. How much had he missed in this life? Sasuke showered quickly, enjoying the warm water slide down his body, erasing everything from his past life. After he dried off and dressed, he made his way back to the kitchen where Sakura sat at the table drinking tea. His two sons sat beside her eating rice balls and sliced seasoned tomatoes. She turned to him and smiled, come, sit, the kids decided to start eating without you. He smiled back and took the seat beside her. He only watched as she picked up a plate and placed 3 rice balls upon it before setting it in front of him. She then stood up with a small bowl in hand and made her way to the fridge. He continued to watch her out of the corner of his eye as she placed something into the bowl and then returned to the table. She placed the bowl beside his plate and smiled at him. Sliced seasoned tomatoes, just like the ones his sons were eating. He picked up his chopsticks and used them to lift one of the tomatoes into his mouth. He smiled, delicious. He couldn't remember the last time he had a home-cooked meal, the last time he was able to actually sit down and enjoy a meal. He picked up another tomato and placed it in his mouth. She gave a small laugh. Well, I'm glad you like it. The way you're acting, it's as if this were the first decent meal you have had in a while. Haru picked up one of his own tomatoes between 2 fingers, tomato. Akira only laughed at his younger brother. Sakura turned to the boys, please don't play with your food, you're supposed to eat it. Haru looked at her and quickly stuffed the tomato into his mouth, puffing his cheeks in the process. Sakura laughed, as did Akira. Sasuke couldn't help himself as a soft chuckle escaped past his lips. The meal continued as Akira talked about how he was doing at the academy and how he and his friends hoped to be placed on the same team. He listened and was amazed at everything that lay underneath the story. Ino and Choji were married, as were Naruto and Hinata. Neji married Tenten. Akira was friends with Naruto's twins, Hina, the girl, and Shiro, the boy. Ino and Choji also had a daughter who is 2 years younger than them. Neji and Tenten are expecting their first son soon. Kakashi still has not settled down and is now an Anbu captain. After the meal, he helped his oldest son with the hand seals to his families in kunai target practice. Akira even asked when Uncle Kakashi would be allowed to teach him Chidori. Night came quickly as the kids were sent to bed after dinner. The 2 of them were now in their bedroom. Sakura sat on the bed as he stood by the window looking out. Are you coming to bed? She asked him. Her voice low with exhaustion. He shook his head, I think I'm going to go for a walk. Clear my head. He wanted a few more answers before he went to sleep. He had no way of knowing if he would wake up and be back in his own time or if he would still be here. I'll join you. She was about to stand when he stopped her. No, you stay here, get some rest. You look tired. I won't be long. He didn't even meet her eyes as he made his way to the door and left the room. He could feel her disappointment and it hurt him that he made her feel such an emotion. Once outside, he left the compound and made his way into the streets. He didn't know what he was looking for. It wasn't long till he found himself on the training ground in front of the memorial stone. This is where they first became a team. The place he first got to really know his wife and best friend. Everything was silent around and he shut his eyes. Are you still missing Uchiha? Sasuke turned to the voice to see the little old woman that had first given him the stone. She stood there before the 3 wooden poles that were at the training ground, a small makeshift cane was supporting her. I still don't know what you mean by that. But tell me this, am I dreaming, or am I really here? She smiled, have you felt pain or yearning? Are you acting differently than you normally do? Sasuke took a step forward, so then this is all real. She continued to smile, do you still possess the stone I gave to you, Uchiha? She had no intention of giving him a straight answer. Sasuke had no idea what had happened to the stone. As far as he knew, he did not have it. No, I don't have it. Are you sure? Check your pockets. You might be surprised. Her voice mocking him. He glared at her and did as he was told, sticking his hands into the pockets of his pants. His fingers touched to a cold surface and let his hands wrap around its body. As his hands left his pocket, he felt the weight of the chain. He opened his hand and the stone lay perfectly in his palm, the same blood color as before staring up at him. How did it get into his pocket? What was this woman? So you do have it. He looked up at her to see an amused grin upon her face. You did not believe the stone had powers, did you? She laughed lightly. How do I get home? He did not want to be here for long, this wasn't the life he had, he would not let his mind be distracted from his goal. Once the stone loses all its color, you will return home. Until then, you will remain here, with your wife and children. The smile never leaves her face. And how long is that? Days? Weeks? Months? He asked, anger raising in his voice. He had to leave. He had no time for this. Each stone is different. I cannot tell you the exact number. She looked at him curiously, how have you been feeling? Sasuke looked at her confused, I feel fine, what does my health have to do with this? She laughed, not physically, emotionally how do you feel? She used her cane and made her way to the stone bench before sitting down with a sigh. These old bones are hard to stand on nowadays. Looking and meeting his eyes, she said, this is not your time, you are not the same man here that you were. Have you not noticed? The way you react to people, the way you speak. It is all different from before. I actually see it as an improvement. She turned away and mumbled, pulling your sword out on an old woman, how rude you were before. Are you saying that I will change to fit this time? He asked. Of course, little by little you will mold into the Sasuke of this time, so that you may truly know what it means to have this life. That is the power of the stone. Her voice smug as if she was happy he was to change. That explained why he reacted to Sakura when she touched him and why he was able to get along with his son. They weren't his emotions. It was hard to imagine that he was changing on the inside as well. He had been here for no more than 3 days and he was already changing. Had he accepted Sakura as his wife? Not yet. His body responded to her, it wanted to claim her, but his mind did not. In his mind, Sakura was not his. In his time, he had left her behind for a reason, he could not change his mindset, he would not get attached to her in this time. The 2 sons he had, they did not exist in his time, he had no reason to avoid them now. He could not get attached to something that did not exist for him. He would try to avoid contact with Sakura to avoid his body from responding. Is there anything else that I should know? He asked, trying to keep his voice level. She gave a small laugh, everything else you must learn on your own. She slowly stood up, I would use this time wisely, Icha. Learn of the life you could have had. Her steps were slow and paced as she walked down the path away from him. His eyes made their way back to the memorial stone. Do you know what has happened with my brother this time? No answer. Sasuke turned back to her to demand an answer, but she was gone. She had vanished in thin air. What was that woman? Sasuke returned to the compound, making his way into the house. Standing outside his bedroom, he paused. Was Sakura asleep already? He opened the bedroom door and his eyes made their way to the clock on the nightstand. 2:34. It was pretty late. Sasuke now looked over at his wife, who was fast asleep. She lay on her back on top of the blanket, dressed in a white thin strap top and red lace panties. She must have tried to stay up and wait for him. He couldn't help but stare at her form. Her hair pooled around her head, leaving a few strands in front of her eyes. One hand lay fisted upon her breasts as they slowly rose and fell with each breath. His eyes traveled down her body, letting the image sink into his memory. His eyes stopped at what lay between her slightly parted legs. The moonlight that flooded the room from the window showered flesh in a glow, making the skin of her thighs seem smooth as silk and welcoming his eager touch. Just one touch, that couldn't hurt. He took a step forward, one hand reaching slightly, trembling. Just a brush of his fingertips against her smooth flesh just a single inch away. Sasuke. He froze and his eyes went to her. They still lay shut and she did not move. Her head turned, Sasuke-kun. He pulled back, raising his hand to eye level. What was he thinking? This is what he wanted to avoid, getting close to her. She was off limits. He would avoid all physical contact if possible, just enough so she doesn't suspect something is wrong. He turned away from her and removed his clothes, changing into a pair of soft black pants. As he was about to get into the bed, his eyes once more traveled to the woman beside him. He couldn't help but think she must be cold. He could not lift the blanket from under her to cover her without waking her. He sighed and walked over to the closet, it should have a spare blanket. He was right. Pulling out one he walked back over to her and laid it over her body before returning to his side and slipping under the covers himself. Turning his back to her he looked out the window. Damn his emotions. Sasuke woke to find himself still in the bedroom he shared with Sakura. He sighed and turned to find her gone from the bed. The sound of his eldest son speaking brought his attention to the door. The voice a mumble coming from another part of the house, he stood and placed one of the white robe shirts that he found in the closet on to go with the pants we had worn to bed and searched for his family. Just that thought made him stop. His family. He had a family again. Sasuke shook his head. He couldn't let himself be taken by these emotions. It was bad enough he was stuck in this life. He made his way through the house, he found them in the kitchen. The eldest of the sons sat at the table playing with his plate. Is it ready now? Sakura stood over the stove with her back to him, not quite, almost. She did not turn as he entered, letting his eyes go over her form. She wore tight black pants that went to her knees and a white skirt that would have revealed much had she worn it alone. Her top half was covered by a red short-sleeved shirt that only reached a few inches below her breasts. The bow from the apron she wore lay just on the curve of her back, as if she were a gift waiting to be opened. He shut his eyes to stop himself from thinking, but when he opened them, it was only worse. Sakura had turned to face him, I see you're finally up. Yeah, I guess I needed some sleep. He tried hard to control his body as his eyes took her in. The apron was just low enough to give him a view of her low-cut shirt that exposed a nice amount of her chest. Would he really let his wife out of the house like that? Could you do me a favor, go and get Haru from his room? He should be awake by now. Her voice brought him out of his thoughts as he nodded and turned and went to find his son's room. Damn him, why could he not stop himself? Every time he looked at her. Did the Sasuke love her that much? He had to find a way to stop this. He was finally able to find his son's room to see Haru sitting on the floor of his room, trying to either pull on or off a shirt that seemed to have gotten stuck. "What are you doing?" he asked, trying to hold back a laugh. "Daddy, I got stuck." His voice was slightly muffled by the shirt. "I can see that. Here, let me help you with that." Sasuke walked up to his son and knelt before him. With a pull here and there, he was able to remove the shirt. His son shook his head to celebrate his freedom, then looked up at him with the same joy-filled eyes as his wife. Sasuke couldn't help but be taken back for a second. Let's get you ready for breakfast, shall we?" Eren nodded and let Sasuke help him place his shirt on. It wasn't long before the two of them entered the kitchen and sat at the table. "Dad, can you walk me to the academy today?" Sasuke looked up at Akira, who smiled hopefully. "Sure, no problem," he said as Sakura placed a bowl of white rice with egg in front of him. He looked up and she smiled at him before turning to go and make the servings for the children. She returned quickly and they all sat at the table. "Sasuke, I have to work late at the hospital today, so can you be sure to pick up Haru from Ino's place? She will be watching him today," Sakura said to him, their eyes not meeting. "What time?" he said as he ate a mouthful of rice. "Whenever you are done training with Naruto and Kakashi." She turned to Akira, "And remember, you have to go to Uncle Naruto's place with Shiro and Hina today." "I know, Mom, I know," he said in an annoyed tone. He could see Sakura wanted to say something, but she kept her mouth shut. The rest of the meal went by. Sakura discussed how things were going at the hospital and how she could wait till they went on another mission. Sakura left with Haru and Sasuke was left with Akira as he ran around trying to get his things ready to go. He stood in the living room, looking at the family photos that decorated the wall. That's when he saw it. Next to a picture of his mother and father was one of Itachi and himself. Why would he hang such a thing in his house? As he moved to pick it up, he froze. He couldn't take it down. Why couldn't he take it down? What had become of his brother? "Dad, I'm ready to go," he heard from the doorway. Sasuke turned away from the image. "Alright, let's go then." He walked out of the room and to the front door, his son followed. He listened as his son spoke once more about some of his classmates and his teachers. It was not long till they were at the academy. Sasuke was surprised to see Naruto standing under the tree that held the swing from their childhood. Naruto turned to face him as he approached. "Hey, team, you dropping off Akira?" "Yeah, I got tagged into dropping the twins off. Hinata had to go to work this morning," Naruto said to him. Akira had waved goodbye, "Bye dad, see you later." And off he ran with his classmates. Sasuke waved back and turned to Naruto. "You must be proud, team. Akira's a great kid. Shiro always tells me how one day he's going to beat him one day." Naruto smiled and chuckled, "Sounds like us when we were growing up." Sasuke thought back, it does." He stood and watched as all the students went inside. Now he and Naruto stood out there alone. "Come on, dope, let's go get some training done." In all honesty, he wanted to see what kind of strength Naruto had this time. He turned and began his way to the training grounds. "Hey, team, where are you going?" "Our training grounds are this way." Sasuke turned to see Naruto facing the opposite direction. "You know, Granny Tsunade won't let us use the regular ones, she always complains about damage and endangering citizens." Sasuke ran a hand through his hair and caught up to Naruto, and the two began walking. A minute later Naruto looked at him, "What's going on with you lately? You're so moody and out of it." Sasuke said the first excuse he could think of, "I just haven't been sleeping well." "Team, are you having those nightmares about your brother again?" Sasuke's ears perked at the mention of his brother. "I mean, not to be rude and all, but he's dead, he can't hurt your family again, you made sure of that." Sasuke felt a chill, his brother was dead. He had killed his brother this time. "He's dead." His voice almost whispered. "Yeah, the Akatsuki should have thought twice before taking Sakura from us. They wouldn't have never gotten her if she hadn't been a month pregnant. I'm glad I only had to go through Hinata being pregnant once, that was bad enough. You went through it twice." Sasuke turned out to be Naruto. So the Akatsuki took Sakura and he killed Itachi in the process. Had he hurt her? Had Itachi laid his hands on her? He could feel his blood rise at the thought. "Hey, Sasuke, are you there?" He looked up to see Naruto waving his hand in front of his face. Sasuke grabbed the hand and squeezed, "Don't do that." His eyes filled with annoyance. Naruto took back his hand. "Ow, team, that hurt." Sasuke hid a laugh. He was still the same idiot he was before. Naruto, Kakashi and he created quite a mess at the appointed training ground, most of it done between Naruto and him. Sasuke could feel that Naruto was holding back, just as he was. Training had apparently become just a way to prevent them from becoming rusty. It was as if they had no way to improve their strength. Kakashi mostly sat on the sideline and read his novel. It was as if he had gone just to babysit them, to make sure that they didn't try and kill each other as they would have in the Genin days. Sasuke hadn't realized how long they had practiced. The sun was still high in the sky as they walked the 3 miles back to the village. Kakashi excused himself saying that he had important matters to attend to and disappeared in a puff of smoke. He remembered that he was to pick up his youngest son from Ino's place and had no idea where that was. The blonde beside him was clueless to his problem, maybe he could use that, "Hey dope, what to come with me to pick up Haru from Ino's?" Naruto looked at him and smiled. "Sure, I mean, Akira is at my place anyway, we can stop by there and then all of us can go for ramen." Sasuke shook his head. The idiot still loved his ramen. "Alright then, but Sakura will be mad that I spoiled their appetites." Naruto looked up and frowned, "Hinata might not like that either, maybe we should just get some to go and take it home. The girls will see it as a night off from cooking." He smiled again, "Come on. Let's go to Ino's." He should have known that Ino had moved into Choji's house. The pickup went smoothly without any conversation between him and the woman who once had a crush on him. How odd was it that she married the one she was always annoyed by on her team? I guess he couldn't say much since he married Sakura. "Daddy?" the boy said as he saw his father and ran up to him. Sasuke picked him up and once again placed him upon his shoulder as if it was the most natural thing to do. "Come on. Let's get the rest of the kids and go get ramen," Naruto said to Haru. "Yay, ramen." Sasuke let out a little laugh, "I might as well be dealing with two 2-year-olds. He walked his way back into the center of the village, Naruto right behind him, screaming that he was not a 2-year-old, that he just had a lot of energy. Naruto had moved into the Hyuga house as was customary. Hinata was not home, but still on her shift at the hospital, which meant that so was Sakura. The kids were training with Hinata's father when they entered the courtyard. Sasuke could not remember having said 2 words to this man in his life. The man was having a small sparring match with a twin girl, while the 2 boys sat off to the side and were drinking tea. Akira turned when the 2 entered more and placed his cup down before running over to him. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "Well, your uncle Naruto decided he wanted ramen and wanted everyone to come," Sasuke said to the boy. By then Shiro, Naruto's son, had come up to hug his father and the older man and daughter had stopped their match. This was the first time Sasuke had seen Naruto's kids and he was amazed how much the boy looked like his father. The only difference was that Shiro had the white Hyuga eyes. The girl on the other hand had her mother's long dark and violet hair and looked just like the heiress. Her twins, the only thing that matched was their eyes and that was to be expected with the bloodline they shared. "Hey Uncle Sasuke." He looked down to see Shiro looking up at him. Sasuke knelt down, placed Haru standing beside his brother and turned back to the little blonde. "Yes Shiro. Akira said that you can breathe fire and are teaching him how to do it, is that true?" Sasuke couldn't believe how much he even sounded like his teammate from when they were kids. "Yes, I can and yes, I'm teaching him how," Sasuke said as he stood up. The little blonde's eyes went wide. "Really? Wow, can you teach me? I want to breathe fire too." "I don't think so, I don't think your mom would like you breathing fire and besides that's a family secret." Naruto looked at him and smiled. "Isn't that right, team?" Sasuke nodded. "Yeah, just like your fighting style is for your family, this secret is for ours." He turned to Akira who gave him a big smile. Hina had moved to stand beside her father but had not said a word, she was as shy as her mother had been at that age. The 6 of them went all together to Ichiraku Ramen, which was the place they had eaten the most after becoming Team 7. He didn't know how Naruto was able to eat so much of the stuff and not feel sick. He and Naruto ordered for both their families to go and the kids said their goodbyes to each other before they separated and the 2 went their separate ways. Sasuke made sure to get some for Sakura too before they made their way home. Akira held Haru by the hand while Sasuke carried the food. It wasn't long till they were back at the compound and the boys were excited. It was almost 4 in the afternoon. Sasuke wasn't sure when Sakura would be home, but he didn't have to wait long. As he placed the food in the kitchen he heard the soft hum of her voice coming from the courtyard. Sasuke followed it to see her back turned to him as she was reaching up, hanging clothes to dry on the clothesline. He stood on the porch and watched the view. How she tortured him, she had changed from the morning, this time into a pair of what had been black shinobi pants that had been cut and torn into shots that was just long enough to cover her ass, and what must have been one of his old muscle shirts that was way too big on her. Her hands went to her side as she turned to face him, the heavens must hate him. He had been right, that shirt was too big because when she turned to face him, one of the straps slipped off her shoulder and kept her barely covered. The only thing that kept that shirt up was her bosom that tightened the shirt on her body. He could feel the heat rush to his face as he eyed down her neck and into the smooth crevasse of her breasts. It was as if he was being tested on every level. He had been here a week and he had not given in, but he wasn't sure of how much more he could take. "Hey, Sasuke, how was training?" she asked as she walked over to him. It was alright, what are you doing at home, I thought you were working today?" he asked, trying to avert his gaze to anything but her. Oh, Tsunade let me go home since it wasn't too busy today, but I'm on call if she needs me. She looked at the sky. I didn't know it was this late, I should start on dinner. She took in a deep breath and he couldn't help but watch the fall and rise of her chest. Sasuke mentally slapped himself, you don't have to cook today, me and the boys picked up some ramen on the way, it's on the kitchen table. He drabbled out to her. She stood in front of him and slipped off her sandals before stepping onto the hardwood floor, then looked up at him and smiled, oh really, thanks. That helps me a lot. Sasuke was in hell as she raked her fingers from his chest and around his body as she walked past him without a second thought. It was as if she knew he was trying to resist her. He could still feel the heat from her touch. Had he felt her touch on his bare flesh, he knew that he would lose the fight. They ate their ramen and Sasuke distracted himself the rest of the afternoon by helping Akira train late into the night. He would avoid being alone with his wife no matter what. It was just past 9 when he walked into his room and removed his shirt, tossing it into what appeared to be the clothes hamper. How inviting the bed looked as he collapsed into it face down. He could sleep like the dead till morning. "Aw, my poor baby, you look tired," he heard from the door. Before he could turn around or even act, he felt her hand upon his shoulder holding him down. Her other hand found his other shoulder and her body swung over his. She was now straddling his body, her knees hugging his sides. Her hands glided down his back, her fingertips grazing his flesh before kneading into his tired muscles. He felt her lean forward, her body pressed into his back, raising the heat he had suppressed to a maximum high. "Relax, let me work these tired muscles for you," she whispered into his ear. She laid a kiss to his shoulder, then another before she sat up again. He could feel her hands fill with a warm chakra before she continued to knead into his body, working her way through his shoulders and down her back. Sasuke could not fight back a moan that escaped past his lips as she hit just the right spots. He heard her giggle, "Does that feel good, baby?" Sasuke had lost, "Yeah, it does." His voice husky with need. Still working his muscles, she leaned forward and placed a kiss to his shoulder and let her lips glide across his heated skin till she reached the curve of his neck, her breath upon his flesh, only adding to the fire inside him. "You shouldn't let yourself get so tense, you know that I can help you release that tension." She kissed him again, in more ways than one. Her hips suddenly grinded against him. "Damn her to hell and back." He groaned in approval as his hips raised themselves off the bed, giving her opportunity to slip one hand around him to the front of his pants. He could feel her fingers slip under the band of his pants, making another louder groan come out. He was trapped now, there was no escape. He didn't think he wanted to at this point. "Lady Uchiha. Lady Uchiha." Her hand stopped and retreated. He felt the heat of her body leave him, damn it, why now? "I think that's the messenger from the hospital. I guess I'm being called into work." He turned around and sat up, trying to get his body under control. The voice outside kept calling her name. She had changed her clothes to what she had been wearing that morning, minus the apron. "I'm sorry, Sasuke." She came over and gave him a quick kiss. "I'll make it up to you, I promise. I don't know when I will be back, but if I'm not here in the morning, just let the kids have cereal for breakfast and be sure to tell them I love them." Another kiss. "Bye, sweet dreams." And she turned and left. "Quiet down, I'm coming. Geez, my kids are sleeping, you big idiot." Her voice disappeared down the hall. Sasuke was alone, his body still coming down from its heated peak. That had been too close. Damn it. Why did he react to her? Had it been another woman, he would have just shrugged it off, he would have not even seen it as exciting, but his body wanted her. He knew that sooner or later the bottom half of his body would win if he was not more careful. Sasuke laid back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. He needed a plan. Sakura had not returned home when the sun came up. He had come up with his plan before falling asleep the night before as he took a cold shower. Even after she had left, his body still demanded of her. He had never needed a cold shower before that moment. He had been glad that she had not returned, since he didn't know how his body would respond to her return. Sasuke had gotten the kids up and ready, giving them the cereal for breakfast, and had then dropped off at their destined places. With that done, he made his way to the Hokage's tower. He hoped this plan worked. Knocking upon her door, he heard the shuffle of papers and then a mumbled voice, "Come in." Sasuke entered the room to see the great Hokage wiping drool from her face with a lazy look in her eye. "Lady Tsunade, I would like a word with you." She met his eyes. "Alright, well, what can I do for you?" She lifted the bottle of sake on her desk and shook its contents and frowned. It was empty. "I would like to receive a mission, preferably something a little challenging." He said to her, if he was away on missions, then he would have no contact with Sakura and there was no chance of getting attached to her. It was a plan that made the most sense to him. She frowned again. "Sakura asked me not to give you any missions till you were completely better from that knock on your head." "Damn her, I am better. I'm just a little wound up and need to release some of it. There are only so many times I can beat on Naruto." His voice is still level and calm. She raised an eyebrow. Well, you seem fine to me. I guess it wouldn't hurt. She shuffled the papers on her desk and picked up a scroll she found. Lifting it up in his direction, I just got this from the Land of Waves. They said that some rogue shinobi were heading this way. We don't know if they went around or if they plan to come near here. There are 4 of them. Their bios are here. All you have to do is take another shinobi with you and scout around the village, see if you can sense them anywhere near here. A 3-day sweep should be enough. Is that understood? He had to have someone with him. He thought of Naruto, a perfect chance to ask more questions about his past, and 3 days away from her torturing and teasing him was just what he needed. Understood. I would like to take Naruto with me. He said as he took the scroll from her hands. She smiled. I figured as much. She sighed. Very well, leave the village in 2 hours. So go and get him. Good luck. But that he bowed and left. It was odd how he was doing things that he normally wouldn't do and not thinking that it was weird. This must have been what the old woman was talking about. His emotions were changing to fit his character of this time. He reached in his pocket and pulled out the stone. Staring at it, he could already see that the very tip of it had turned white. How much longer would he be here? Sasuke sighed and placed the stone back into his pocket before he went in search of the idiot fox. It didn't take a genius to figure out where he was. Sasuke walked into the ramen shop and there he was. He went and sat beside him. Naruto lifted his current bowl up in the air and finished its contents before turning to him. What's up, team? Are you up for a mission? A playful smile on his lips. Sasuke had always enjoyed a good fight. Naruto returned his fox grin. Believe it. I'm ready for some action. Not much action, it's more of a scouting mission. He pulled out the scroll and gave it to Naruto. He watched as Naruto opened it and read its contents. A mission's a mission, I'm with you. He said as he closed the scroll. The fox paid for his meal and the two left together. Let me just go and tell Hinata that I won't be able to pick up the kids today. He turned to him. You should tell Sakura too. Sasuke thought about it and agreed, so the two made their way to the hospital. Just as they entered, they saw Hinata with her back turned to them. She was speaking to some of the nurses when they approached. She excused the nurses who left with a giggle when she turned to face her husband. Naruto, what brings you here? You're not hurt, are you? He leaned in and gave her a quick kiss. Nah, I just wanted to come and tell you that I won't be able to get the kids today. Sasuke and I got a mission. Sasuke interrupted. Is Sakura around? The wide-eyed girl looked at him. She's with a patient, but you are free to wait till she is done, it shouldn't be long. Perfect, he thought, it's alright, we have to get going anyway, just tell her about the mission and that I'm sorry I can't pick up Haru today. Hinata looked a bit surprised at his words. Oh okay, if you say so. She turned back to Naruto. Be careful. She kissed him again and embraced him. He pulled back and smiled at her. Don't worry, it's only a scouting mission. We should be back in no more than 3 days. But that they departed the hospital and planned to meet at the Uchiha compound in half an hour. Sasuke went home and packed what he needed. It wasn't much. A change of clothes, some food, and his weapons. He wasn't sure how much time had passed since he had arrived. It wasn't until Naruto came into his room dressed in his Anbu gear that he realized he should change too. Just give me a second. Sasuke went and looked in the wardrobe and found his own Anbu uniform with a wolf mask with blue designs lying upon it. Next to his lay another set of Anbu clothes, except it had a cat mask with red designs on it. That one must belong to Sakura. Hurry up, team. I can't believe you're not ready yet. He sat upon the bed, placing his own bag upon the floor. Sasuke just glared at him and dressed quickly, placing the mask on the placer upon his shoulder. He saw himself in the mirror and was actually amazed. It felt good to be in the Anbu uniform, it felt right somehow. He turned to Naruto and finally saw the fox mask placed neatly upon his own shoulder. He wondered how long they had been a part of the Anbu Black Ops. Are you ready now? Naruto was annoyed. HN. He picked up his bag and walked out of the room without another word. Hey, wait up. He heard Naruto fumble and finally follow him down the hall. It wasn't long till the two had reached the gate only to see their old sensei standing there. It was as if the man had not aged a day since their team's 7 days. The mask still covered his face and it made him wonder if any of them had ever seen him without his mask. Hey Kakashi, what are you doing here? Naruto ran up to the man, stopping less than a foot from him. I went to see Sakura and she told me who the two were heading off on a mission. He looked at Sasuke. She asked me to give her this, she was too busy to come herself. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. With a flick of his wrists he tossed it to Sasuke, who caught it between 2 fingers. Sasuke looked down at the little brown envelope in his hand. Thanks. He said as he placed it into his own pocket without opening it. The two met eyes, the friction between the two was almost maddening. Why was Kakashi so upset with him? He turned back to Naruto and smiled. Well, good luck on your mission. He walked past Naruto and toward Sasuke, stopping just to the left of him. I'd be careful not to hurt the blossom that loves you. Right now, she cries inside. His voice is soft enough only from him to hear. Then he vanished with a puff of smoke. What was that about? Was something wrong with Sakura? Had he hurt her without even knowing it? He hardly had any contact with her, how had he hurt her? Kakashi was blaming him for her being sad, that's why he was practically glaring at him. What was Kakashi to Sakura? Somehow, the thought of something between the two of them upset him. He didn't want to think of this now, let's go, dope. We have a mission to complete. Sasuke walked past Naruto and out through the gate. Naruto followed, what was that about? Kakashi seemed mad. Sasuke had to come up with a reason, maybe because Sakura was using him as a messenger boy. Naruto looked up, yeah, I guess that would be upsetting to a shinobi of high standing. The two leapt from branch to branch, each knowing that no one was around in the thick woods but them. An hour passed before they came upon a clearing to rest. Sasuke looked around and placed his bag down. Naruto did the same right beside him. Sasuke placed his hands inside his pocket, his fingers brushing the envelope. He had forgotten about that. He pulled it out ignoring Naruto as he fished through his own bag for food. Sasuke turned the thing around in his hands before lifting the flap and pulled out its contents, a small sheet of paper folded in half. He had almost missed the photo that fell from inside the fold of the letter. He reached down and picked it up, turning it over to face it towards him. His eyes went wide. It was a family photo of Sakura with their two sons. They sat on the steps into the garden. Haru sat upon her lap with Akira sitting on the step below between her legs. Sakura had her arms around the smiling 2-year-old she had laying upon his shoulder. Akira was resting on one hand upon her knee, a kunai in the other, his clothes dirty as if he had been training. He wondered what had been going on when this was taken. Sasuke felt a small pang in his heart, then his mind went blank before an image came to him. Sasuke, just hurry and take the picture. Sakura cried out while trying to suppress a laugh as Haru squirmed in her lap. The warm breeze blowing a strand of her rosette locks in front of her eyes as she looked at him. Dad, I want to train some more. Akira said as he stabbed the kunai into the ground. Alright, just one moment. Sasuke could feel the camera in his hands as he looked through its lenses, everyone ready. Smile. They did as the flash went off. Finally, Sakura said standing up with Haru on her hip and one arm around him. She walked over to him wrapping her free arm around him and looking up at him, you are such a perfectionist. She went on her toes and he leaned forward and they shared a brief kiss, but that's one of the things I love about you. She smiled up at him and kissed him again. Sasuke shook his head and the image before him returned to the picture in his hand. What had happened? Sasuke, hey Sasuke, you in there? Naruto waved his hand in front of his eyes. Stop that. He responded. Naruto stepped back, you spaced out there for a moment. Are you having a flashback or something? The flashback? Could that be what he had? A memory of what happened the day that this picture was taken. Yeah, just remembering something. He said to the blonde. Well, aren't you going to read the note? He said, pointing to the letter in Sasuke's hand. He had forgotten about that, so he lifted it up and unfolded it. It held only 5 words written in her neat print. Be safe. I love you. Sasuke felt a pang of guilt deep inside him. He really had hurt her. It didn't say those words, but he could feel it. She had written this with a pained heart. Damn it. Even when he was miles from her she was still getting to him. He couldn't escape her. He was even having memories of her now. These emotions were pulling him in deeper and deeper and he had no idea how to get out. He was even beginning to not want to get out. He found he enjoyed training with his son, having a family dinner and in some aspects, sharing a bed with one he had feelings for. Sasuke placed the note back into the envelope along with the picture, placing them both into a pocket of his pack. He stood and turned to face Naruto. Let's go, we still have more areas to check out. Naruto nodded and smiled, alright let's go. The first day passed and they had not seen any sign of the rogue shinobi. There was always the chance they would never step onto Leaf territory. It was late at night and the two had set up camp. Sasuke sat against a tree while Naruto slept near the fire. Sasuke thought of his wife who was probably waiting for his return. Her words repeating themselves in his mind. Be safe. I love you. Simple words any wife would say to a husband with a dangerous job. Why did they affect him so much? Sasuke tried to picture the Sakura he remembered growing up, loud, annoying, clingy. But all he came up with was images in his mind of her holding him as he suffered the pain of the curse mark in the forest of death, them lying together in his old bedroom, sharing a passionate kiss under the cherry blossoms with a teenage Sakura after the cultural festival, her short pink and white kimono slightly askewed by his wandering hands. Sasuke couldn't help but blush with that memory. How old were they then? 15? 16? He didn't know. Why did he blush at something like that? It wasn't as if they were, that was all that it took. Sasuke loomed over Sakura as she arrived in pleasure. He braced himself with a single hand that was pushed upon the bed beside her head while the other one cupped her breast. He leaned forward and kissed her shoulder before he thrust it again. His pace slow and steady, wanting to prolong this moment as long as possible. She whimpered and gasped in approval, her hands gripping the bed for dear life. He smiled against her flesh as he kissed up her neck, his thrust still leisurely. She was almost there, he could feel it. Her wells caressed him tighter, making him hiss in his own pleasure. "Sasuke, please don't torture me." Her voice panting in need of air and her body in need of release. Her grip changed from the bed to wrapping around his body, digging into his flesh. He smiled and whispered in her ear, "Shall I release you?" Then he thrust it again and held it in her tight passage. She felt amazing, as if her sex was caressing his own. He wouldn't be able to hold out much longer himself before he ravaged her. "Yes, please," she panted. Sasuke kissed her roughly and hooked her knee in his arm before he pulled out and thrust it again, harder than before, "As you wish." She gasped out loud and was struck almost breathless as he did it again, quickening his pace. Sasuke could feel himself building up, his length hard and waiting inside her, begging to be released. It wouldn't have to wait long. Her walls tightened and she cried out as she had her own much-needed release, which triggered his own as he felt himself empty into her passage. A low, almost primitive groan came from him as he thrusted one last time before they both went limp. Sasuke pinning her to the bed as they both panted for breath, coming down from their peak of ecstasy. Sasuke groaned and shook his head. Damn it all to hell. What was wrong with him? He opened his eyes and felt the stiffness that plagued him. Why now of all times? If she had been there with him at that moment he would not have held back. Damn it, why did he have to have a flashback of that? The gods truly did hate him. He placed his head in his hands and tried to bring himself down. "What's wrong with Ichiha? You seem a bit stiff." Sasuke turned to yell, but saw the old woman sitting upon a large stone just on the other side of the campfire. He stood, "You knew this would happen, you knew I would get flashbacks of this life." "Of course I knew, but that was something you had to figure out for yourself, you can't run away from a situation here. You will remember things that you want to remember, all it takes is some practice." She tipped her cane on the ground. "Until then, just the thought of something could trigger memories, just as you felt right now." His anger rose, "Anything else I should know?" She smiled, "I do suggest you stop fighting your urges. They will win in the end anyway. You want the blossom, she wants you, why fight it?" He looked away trying to hide his embarrassment. Talking about this with an old woman, it was just unsettling. He looked back but she was gone. Sasuke couldn't help but look around, but she was nowhere to be seen. "Hey team, did something happen?" Naruto had sat up and was looking at him, rubbing his eyes. Sasuke sighed, "It was nothing, go back to sleep. You still have an hour to your shift." Beyond, "Alright, night-night." He lay back down and immediately began to snore. How Hinata could stand sleeping next to that night after night was beyond him. Sasuke just looked up at the sky and sighed again. It was going to be a long night. Sasuke and Naruto stayed out on their mission for the 3 days and came across nothing. The Mist Shinobi had not come near Leaf territory. Sasuke had continued to have memories of her, memories of them together. He had even learned more about his brother's death. Sakura had just found out that she was pregnant with their first child when she was taken by the Akatsuki. They were originally after Hinata to lure Naruto out so they could take the demon within him. Sakura just happened to be there with her and was not able to fight back due to the child within her. Hinata escaped and Sakura was taken. Sasuke, by himself, went after her without permission from the village. The battle itself was fated and confusing, but he knew that it was Sakura that kept him going, which made him stronger. His need to protect her made him strong enough to defeat his brother. He could remember carrying her back to the village after he killed Itachi and Kisame, holding her close to him. Sasuke shook his head and faded back to the present, where Naruto was talking about how much ramen he was going to eat when he got back. He sighed and just listened as the two made their way back to the village. It wasn't long till they reached the gates. He offered to make the mission report to Tsunade and let Naruto go see Hinata. The blonde immediately agreed and made his way off in the direction of the hospital. He made his own way to the tower, making his way into her office. "So how was the mission?" she asked, taking the scroll from him, a smile on her lips. "Uneventful. We didn't find any trace of them on Leaf territory," Sasuke said. "Well, that's good. I can report to Mist and tell them that their men are not on our lands." She looked up at him, "You're dismissed, I'm sure that you want to see Sakura." He only bowed and walked out. Sasuke knew he had to face her at least, to tell her that he had returned from his mission. He really couldn't put it off. He decided to head to the academy and see if he could pick up his eldest son first. He wasn't ready to face her yet. His thoughts were tainted with images of their past lovemaking. How could he face her? Sasuke scolded himself, how embarrassing for a man to fear his own wife this much. Sasuke was able to pick up both his sons and get them home before Sakura got there. He was able to relax a bit and he listened and answered Akira's questions about his missions. He wasn't sure how much time passed before he could hear her arrival at the house. Sasuke, Akira, Haru, is anyone home? Akira was the first to respond, standing up and running out of the room to go and greet his mother. Yeah mom, we're in here. He was shortly followed by a laughing Haru. Sasuke slowly stood and made his way to greet her. He knew he had to face her sooner or later. Walking into the room he saw the back of her. She wore a short-cut shirt with long shinobi pants that fit her body slightly baggy. When she turned he saw the low-cut V in her shirt and he looked up to meet her eyes, trying to hide a blush. She smiled at him and walked up to him, placing a kiss to his lips. I'm glad you're safe. Her arms now wrapped around him and her voice whispered in his ear. Not wanting to give himself away, he wrapped one arm around her waist. The feel of her slender figure beneath his touch was almost maddening. It was a simple scouting mission, we never even ran into the enemy. You had nothing to worry about. His voice is calm and trying to not appear cold. She pulled away, why don't I make a special dinner? You go and take a long bath. I think you need it. She made a noise pretending that he smelled really bad. He frowned and walked away, I'll be in the bath. He could hear her talk to the children as he walked away. The bath was relaxing and he felt like he could finally breathe and think clearly. Before he stepped out though, he turned on the shower and turned the water ice cold. This was what he really needed. Dinner came and went and Sasuke used his old methods of avoiding her, training with the kids. The problem with that plan was that it only lasted until the kids had to go to bed. After that, he was at her mercy. Sasuke sat upon the railing outside into the backyard. He stared up at the heavens and wondered if the gods were having a laugh at his expense. Sasuke, what are you doing out here? You must be tired, why not come to bed? Her voice is soft and delicate. Not the same one he remembered in their genin days. He turned to face her and regretted it. He turned back into the garden to hide his blush. She had changed into nothing but a short white robe. I just wanted some fresh air. He stood up and stretched, I'm going to go for a walk. She smiled, I'll go with you. He turned and faced her. It's alright, you're already ready for bed and you must be tired. Go to bed, I won't be long. He walked past her into the house. Besides, we shouldn't leave the kids home alone. She said nothing else and he left the house. He didn't know where he was going and he didn't care. He just needed to be out of the house till she fell asleep. It hurt him that Sakura might be upset about his actions, but he wasn't about to let her win. This had become his routine. Play with the kids till they went to bed and then to go for long walks before bed and wait for her to sleep unless she was working nights. It wasn't the best plan in the world, but it would have to do. And it seemed to work for him for a week's time. They shared an occasional kiss here and there and an embrace on some occasion. Sasuke continued to have memories of their intimate times together, which was his own personal pleasurable hell. Everything was going as planned until the day that he ran into Tsunade who asked him to deliver a message to Sakura at the hospital. He mentally cursed and agreed. Stepping into the cold sterile building, he walked up to the counter where a nurse sat behind. Excuse me, can you tell me where my wife is? He asked. She looked up at him and blushed. Lady Uchiha stepped out for a moment. Sasuke leaned forward on the counter, when will she get back? His voice was deep and rough. Her blush grew and he could see her fumble with her hands as she tried to seem busy, I'm not sure. Before he could speak again he heard another voice coming from down the hall on his right, she went with Naruto. She said that she had to talk to him about something that was bothering her. He turned to see Hinata standing there. Where did they go? Knowing her state, the bar is just 4 blocks from here. Her voice was soft and filled with a hidden concern and an almost angry tone in his direction. Was she mad at him too? Thank you. I'll be going then. The thought of her alone in a bar with Naruto made him angry. Why would she go with him? What did she want to talk about? He knew the bar that Hinata had been talking about and it didn't take him long to get there. Sasuke masked his chakra and approached the bar. He wanted to hear what she had to say. He needed to know. Sneaking into the bar was simple enough. He found them sitting at the bar, a bottle of sake sitting between them on the table. He quickly grabbed a table that made him just close enough to hear the conversation, but far enough that they wouldn't see his back facing them. The waitress came by and he ordered his own bottle of sake. He might need it for the events to follow. Sakura, okay, you bring me here to tell me something and all you have done is sit there. What's going on? The blonde asked. Naruto, do you think I'm still pretty? Have I somehow lost my feminine charm? Her voice filled with despair. He heard Naruto choke on his drink. Are you serious? Is this what this is about? Sakura, tell me what's really going on. I think Sasuke might be cheating on me. He hasn't touched me or even kissed me of his own regard for over 2 weeks. He must be with someone else. It never made sense for him to love me. Her voice began to break. Sasuke used to find any reason to touch me, to put his hands on me, or kiss me. Now, it's as if he's trying to avoid me. He thinks he's being subtle about it, but I can tell. Sasuke couldn't believe what he was hearing. She thought he was cheating on her, that she wasn't good enough for him. It was taking all his power not to jump her when they were together. He hadn't even looked at any girl the way he saw her. Sakura, are you sure? Team would never do anything to hurt you. He was just in an accident recently, remember? Maybe he just needs some time. He loves you. No, it's not that. He's normal about everything else. I'm the only thing that has changed. He's still the same with the kids. It's only me. He's tired of me. After 12 years, he's finally tired of me. Her voice is still shaking. 12 years? I thought you two have been together since you were about 13. 13? He and Sakura had been an item since then. That means that they got together shortly after he got out of the hospital after the episode on the roof with Naruto. He heard her slam her shot glass on the bar. We have been together for 15 years, but we didn't have sex for the first time till 2 years later. She poured herself another glass. He's so tired of me that he didn't even come to me before the mission for sex. Naruto choked again and coughed. What? She laughed slightly. Huh, I thought you knew. She took a drink. Sasuke and I always have sex before a mission. We decided a long time ago when one of us got hurt really badly during a mission that we wanted one last good memory of each other in case one of us never came back. I'm surprised he didn't tell you. Hinata told me about your after-mission sex. Damn it, Sasuke thought, that's why she was so upset that he left without saying goodbye to her. How was he supposed to know about that tradition? If he had known he would have never gone on the stupid mission. That's why I know that he's cheating on me. He disappears by himself a lot on his night walks, he seems more nervous around me, and he sometimes comes to bed late. I tried seducing him the night before he ran away on the mission. I gave him a massage while I straddled him, and usually when I do that it takes like 2 seconds for him to turn the tables and pin me to the bed. She took in a long breath. He fought it. He fought the desire to screw me. Why wouldn't he fuck me? Her voice louder than necessary, causing many heads to turn in her direction. Sakura, keep it down. Look. Maybe he was too tired. Did you think of that? A nervous Naruto looked around trying to dissuade people around them from listening. Sakura didn't lower her voice. Yeah, fooling around with some floozy behind my back must exhaust him. Her voice held sarcasm. Sakura, please don't cause a scene. Why not just talk to him? Ask him what's going on. Naruto, I just want to know what's wrong with me. Did something about me change? Does he find me unattractive? I've looked at myself in the mirror over and over again and I can't find the flaw in me. I can't find the part of me that has turned ugly since we've been together. Her voice broke and he could hear tears beginning to fall. He couldn't take much more of this. He couldn't stand to see her like this. Her heart was breaking because of him. This was what Kakashi must have been warning him about. She must have had this conversation with him as well. Sakura, don't cry. There is nothing wrong with you. You're still as beautiful as ever. Any guy in this village would die just to switch places with Sasuke for a day. You know that as well as I do. Her voice muffled, then why doesn't he want me? Damn it all. That was the last straw. He couldn't sit here while another man comforted his wife. Sasuke swallowed the last of his own sake and stood up. Naruto was first to see him, a look of surprise on his face. Sakura had her head down on the table, her shoulders shaking. Naruto said nothing as Sasuke moved to stand behind her, his chakra still masked. One hand on her shoulder, he spun her around on the bar stool to face him before pinning her to her seat. His hands braced on the bar now, he bore over her. She stared up at him with frightened eyes. Sasuke, what are? Sasuke silenced her, pulling himself closer to her so that he now stood between her legs and his lips pressed against hers. She responded immediately with a moan, parting her lips for him. He explored her, deepening the connection. Her hands went around his neck. He could feel her fingers trailing through her hair. He could feel his need growing, there was no more fighting it. Sasuke pulled back and never let his eyes wander from hers. Naruto, can you and Hinata keep the kids tonight? Why yeah, sure, no problem. His voice was confused and uncertain. Good. With that he stepped back and grabbed Sakura's wrist, you are coming with me. Before she could speak he had her up in the air and thrown over his shoulder. He knew everyone in the bar was watching the whole scene and he didn't care. As he exited the bar, Sakura still over his shoulder, he felt her struggle, but only slightly. Sasuke, put me down. What do you think you are doing? Everyone is watching. This is so embarrassing. She continued the rant as he made his way through the streets. More eyes watched in wonder at what was going on between the two. You should be quiet if you don't want to draw attention. He said before he leapt into the air and began to jump roof to roof, her body still over his shoulder. Why you, when I get my hands on you? What the hell is wrong with you? Her voice surprised from the tall jump from one of the taller structures to the floor just outside the Uchiha compound. Damn it, Sasuke. You want to give me a heart attack. Warn me before you are going to do that. He said nothing. She had gone from crying on the bar to fighting him 100% of the way. She truly did not want to show her husband any weakness. He continued, making his way to the main house, still removing his and her shoes before entering. Sakura continued to fight and demand to be put down. Sasuke ignored her and made his way to the bedroom, nothing could stop him now. He kicked open the door, stepped in, and kicked the door shut. "Put me down now," she said, and he finally obeyed, throwing her onto the bed. He watched her grunt when she hit the bed and couldn't help but enjoy how edible she looked spread out. She sat up and stared at him, her hair tousled, clothes slightly skewed. Balancing herself on her elbows, her chest was thrusted upward, begging him to come closer, to come and ravage her. He finally took in what she was wearing that day. How she tortured him, he thought as he took her in. The blood-red corset blouse that went inches above her navel, the threaded lace down the middle of it, showed she wore nothing underneath. That meant the only other article of clothing he had to deal with was her black skirt that left her with miles of bare legs showing. She stared up at him with fear, lust, and wanting. He wasn't sure which one dominated, and at that moment, it didn't matter. Sasuke only looked at her as he pulled his shirt over his head and let it drop to the floor. His hands worked at the tie on his pants as he made his way closer to the bed. His pants joined his shirt before he moved himself over her body. She had not moved, but he could now see her body trembling. He loomed over her, trapping her beneath him. He slowly leaned forward, letting her tense as he placed a kiss to the pulse in her neck. He could feel the rapid flow of her blood beneath his lips. She was nervous, scared. He moved lower, letting his lips trail to the curve between her breasts. A small whimper escaped her lips. He smiled. "Do you see how much I want you? Can you feel it?" She only took in a deep breath and shuddered beneath him, moaning softly. He pulled himself back up and stared at her. She looked up at him through drunken eyes before he kissed her. It was unhurried and delicate as he nipped at her lower lip, enjoying her taste. He pulled back once more and nuzzled into her neck. "How could you even think that I would want anyone more than I want you? It takes all my strength not to ravish you every time I see you." Her body froze still beneath him as her hands moved around his body. "Sasuke, don't make me wait anymore." Her voice is seductive and wanting. That was all he needed. He pulled back slightly and with one hand went to work untying the lace of her blouse. With little patience left, he reached under the pillow and felt around. He smiled. Bingo. Sasuke pulled out a kunai and held it out in front of her. He knew that one of them had to hide some sort of weapon around the bed area. She smiled back as he slid the small blade across her cheeks, down her smooth neck and to the curve of her breasts. He moved it across the lace, slicing through it with ease as Sakura held her breath. As the blade cut the last strand, her body became exposed to him. Her little corset burst open, causing her to release her held breath. He braced himself against the bed and leaned forward again, pressing his lips to the curve of her breasts. He could hear her fight back a moan as he let one hand cup one of her soft mounds. Her grip tightened around him when his lips found one of her hardened peaks. The feel of her beneath him, the feel of her heat at his fingertips was like nothing he had ever imagined. He let his tongue circle her peak, receiving a moan from her. Sakura arched her body into him as if begging for more. He didn't think anything could stop him from claiming her anymore. He suckled and played with her, feeling her writhe and moan beneath him, heating the air around them. "Sasuke, please, I need you." He smiled. "If you insist." He pulled back only slightly and let his hand travel lower on her body, reaching just past her skirt before sliding beneath it and raising it higher up her body. He let his hand travel to the crevice between her legs and stroked her gently. Sasuke enjoyed her whimper and tightened grip upon him. She was completely at his mercy. They both knew it and he enjoyed it. Sasuke could feel the thin material that covered what he desired, but he smiled that the material was soaked with her ecstasy. Her body melted with his touch as he let two fingers slip around her small cover and inserted them into her core. She cried out as her body arched towards his touch. He smiled at how she responded and then slowly pumped his fingers in and out of her as he placed a kiss to her lips. Her cries are muffled by his feverish kiss, making her pant and reach for him. Pulling away slightly, he removed his fingers from her sex and brought them to her lips. "Taste yourself." She obeyed and put his fingers into her mouth. He could feel her tongue lick the juices. She opened her mouth once more and laid back panting. Placing his hand upon her thigh, he kissed her again, using her surprise to spread her wider. He could taste her upon her lips. It was intoxicating, and he wanted more. In one quick motion, he removed his own last article of clothing and positioned himself at her opening. His body loomed over hers as he laid a kiss to the curve of her neck and he entered her. In one thrust he had entered her completely as her own body tightened around his. She cried out, her body shuddered against his own. She felt amazing, as if she had been made just to be taken by him. He pulled out and trusted again. Sasuke pushed himself to his knees and hooked both her legs, trapping her movements. Her back arched into him, her eyes shut tight, and her delicate features displayed her bliss. Sasuke thrusted his hard length into her repeatedly and could feel the pleasure building in him. His pace is quick and desperate like a starving man finally having a meal after being tempted for weeks. His eyes watched Sakura as she clutched the sheets beneath her for dear life, her head thrown back in ecstasy and the small whimpers and moans of approval that escaped past her lips. The feel of her sex caressing him was like nothing he had ever felt before and he still wanted more. Sasuke released one of her legs and braced himself over her, his pace quickening. Sakura released the bedding and grabbed onto him, more, she panted and moaned, please, harder. Her voice is more of a whimper. Sasuke placed a hungry kiss on her lips and she responded with her own as he pushed harder. He could feel her heated core tighten around him bringing him to the edge. Every part of his body was in a fiery rapture of pleasure and bliss. Sakura cried out as her sex squeezed him, bathing their thighs. Her grip on him tightened, sending her nails into his flesh. He loomed over her once more, his lips hovering over hers as she panted and came down from her peak. His thrusting stopped and he smiled, you came without me, that means this is far from over. But that said it took only seconds to change her around that she was now on her knees with one hand braced on the bed, the other on the headboard. Sasuke penetrated her again, one hand wrapping around her body to cup one of her breasts, and she gasped at his touch. He loved how responsive this woman was to him. Placing a kiss to her shoulder he began to thrust into her juices letting him quicken his pace. His hand massaged her breast as she whimpered softly with each plunge into her body. He could feel his release coming, there was no more stopping it. His pace quickened as he took hold of her hips. He could feel her tighten again, Sasuke, I'm she cried out softly as the front half of her body collapsed to the bed, raising her hips higher, her hands clutching the sheets. Every nerve in his body was on fire as he continued to thrust his length into her heated sex. He was close. He could feel her body responding as well. Sasuke wanted to see her face as he emptied into her. Sasuke turned her body on its side still pumping into her, Sakura, look at me. One of her hands still clutched the sheets, the other was at her mouth, the tips of two fingers caught between her teeth. She looked up at him through bliss-hazed eyes that were meant just for him. Only he would ever see her like this. Only he would ever make her feel like this. He remembered Naruto's comment. That many would die to switch with him for a day. Sasuke would rather die before any other man put one hand on her. She was his and his alone. Her walls tightened around him as she cried out once more, her juices seeping onto the bedding and bathing their thighs. His body responded to her pleasure, and with one more thrust, he let out a loud grunt and filled her completely with his release. Sasuke panted and pulled his length from her passage before he released her. He laid on the bed and pulled her body on top of his own. Sakura laid her head upon his chest and with one finger made lazy circles upon the muscles on his arm. He lifted one hand and stroked her hair laying a chaste kiss upon the top of her head, don't ever think that I could feel anything less for you than I do now. There is no one that could ever take your place. She giggled and nuzzled herself closer to him. Sasuke had finally surrendered and there was nothing left of the old Sasuke. He never wanted to leave this life. He never wanted to leave his children, his friends, and especially Sakura. He never wanted to give her up. Sasuke woke as the sun's light beamed through the window, his body warmed by the light. Looking down he saw his sleeping wife pressed against him, her head laid upon his arm. With a whimper and moan her eyes slowly opened and she looked up at him, a smile on her lips. Good morning. He said as he stroked her bare back. Good morning to you. She moved to sit upon him and he sat himself up leaning on the headboard, her body straddling him. It was as if nothing else mattered. He could feel her bare flesh against his own as she leaned in and placed a kiss to his lips. He responded, placing his hands upon her hips, pulling her closer to him. How much had he missed resisting her these past 2 weeks? He felt like an idiot for denying himself the pleasure of her. She pulled back slightly just enough to look him in the eyes. She sighed, I've really missed you. Sasuke looked at her confused, missed me? I've been here. How could you miss me? Physically you've been here but emotionally, she paused, placing her forehead upon his shoulder, I didn't know where you had gone. Sasuke embarrassed her, well I'm here now. I'm sorry I worried about you. I just needed some time to get to my senses after the accident. I didn't even think of how it would affect you. He kissed her shoulder and then cupped her face letting his thumb stroke her cheek, please forgive me. She smiled, I could never stay mad at you. He kissed her softly, enjoying her taste. When he pulled back to let them breathe, he spoke, I can't believe that you would even think that I was seeing someone else. Forgive me. She kissed him again. He smiled slightly, always. Another kiss and she turned to look at the nightstand, it's already so late, we should go get the kids. Sasuke looked at the clock sitting on the nightstand. 10:32 a.m. It's still before noon. Sakura sighed and pushed herself up and made a move to get off the bed. Sasuke grabbed her around the waist, stopping her. Where do you think you're going? He kissed the curve of her neck, letting his hand stroke the smooth flesh of her stomach. "I need a shower," was all she said as she pushed herself free of his grasp and made her way to the bathroom. Sasuke sat on the bed in shock. He couldn't believe how quickly the mood had changed. He thought they would at least have sex one more time before leaving the house, but his expectations now dropped with her sudden withdrawal. His disappointment was at peak when she poked her head out of the bathroom. "Sasuke." He turned to face her. "Yeah." Her expression changed to that of a temptress. "You're not going to let me take a shower by myself, are you? You know how lonely I get." He smiled and made his way to her. As he neared, she reached a hand out to him and he took it. She pulled him in and kissed him. "You should know I would never leave you hanging like that." Sasuke kissed her again. "You had me worried for a moment, I admit. I've been deprived of you for so long." She kissed him once more, pressing her body to his. "You have much to make up for." Sasuke smiled. He would enjoy making it up to her. Sakura straddled his body as they let the water swirl around them, stream filling the room. Instead of a shower, as she had planned, they decided on a bath, taking advantage of the large one that came with their room. Their bodies tangled together as they shared a passionate kiss. He could feel her hand slide through his hair down to his neck, his own hands under the water, caressing her slick curves. Sasuke let his hands travel till they found the treasure between her legs, his fingers stroking her prized jewel. She gasped, her body rising from the water, making her breast's eyes level with him. He took one of her hardened peaks into his mouth, letting his tongue tease her above as his fingers worked below. "Sasuke." Her voice is a pleasured mix of gasps and moans. His free hand took hold of his length and positioned himself just outside of her opening. In one quick motion he replaced his fingers with his hard length, bringing her back down to meet his eyes. One hand wrapped around her hips, the other cupping her face. He stared into her eyes before he placed a chaste kiss to her lips and across her jaw. He could feel her eagerness, her desperation as he held her in place, denying her the ability to move her body against his own. "Grind your hips," he whispered as she moved her hips back and forth and in an occasional circle. Sasuke frowned at the feel of his length being caressed by the soft movements of her body. Each roll of her hip sent jolts of pleasure through his body. Sasuke pulled back slightly, just enough to see the expression upon her face. Her hands braced on his shoulder as her body practically melted. Her mouth slightly open, her eyes hazed, her cheeks blushed the color of her hair. She whimpered as she grinded herself against him. He could tell she wanted more, that she needed more. So did he. He released his grip around her body and placed his hands upon her, his lips trailing across her neck. Both hands now grasped her middle and lifted her slightly before bringing her down again. Sakura gasped at the sudden jolt into her body. Sasuke said nothing to her, but stared into her eyes as if silently telling her she could move. Sakura pulled herself up and thrusted herself repeatedly upon his staff. Her cries and the rippling water was all he could hear as the pleasure built with him. Sakura quickened her pace as she dug her forehead into the flesh of his shoulder, his arms encircled her body. Sasuke couldn't help but feel pure bliss as her walls squeezed his length with each thrust of her body onto him. "Sasuke." His name gasped past her lips as she threw back her head. Her body tightened as her pace quickened. Letting himself go, Sasuke felt the pleasure rise as the friction heated their bodies to climax. The steam filled the room swirling around them. Their bodies aflame with each thrust and Sasuke wanted more as he cupped her face and placed a kiss to her lips. Sasuke and Sakura walked down the streets of Konoha, Sakura's arm linked with his. Keeping his hands in his pockets, Sasuke tried to play it cool, as if he hadn't carried his wife out of a bar over his shoulder. He could feel people watch them, just like they had when he first left the hospital. Sakura still had that carefree smile and acted ignorant of the watching eyes. "Sasuke, I was wondering." Her voice is soft. "Wondering what?" "What are we going to do for Akira's birthday? He turns 7 in 2 weeks. We should plan something special." It was his son's birthday soon. Would he even be here in 2 weeks? He had looked at the stone earlier that morning while getting dressed. Only a bit more had turned, while most of the stone was still blood red. He had time to search for a way to stay in this time, a way to keep his wife and kids. That was his new goal. "Special as in a party or special as in a big gift?" he asked. She shrugged, "Maybe both. I do love to plan parties. We can invite all his friends at the academy and have it at the training grounds. I do not want a bunch of kids tearing through my house." Sasuke listened as his wife spoke of all the things they could do and get for him. He stayed silent, nodding occasionally reassuring her he was listening to her every word. They were really a married couple. It didn't take long for them to reach the Hyuga compound. Sakura still clung to him but had gone quiet about what she wanted to do for the party. The house servants let them in and led them to the small courtyard where the 3 oldest children played and little Haru sat on the sidelines with Hinata and Naruto. Sasuke could see that the kids were practicing throwing kunai and the Hyuga-san was getting frustrated. The adults saw them come in first and smiled in the apparent affection between them. Hinata met his eyes and showed that she had forgiven him for his idiocy. That's when the children saw them enter. Dad. Mom. Akira screamed in joy as he threw the kunai at the target before running over, the kunai landing perfectly in the center. Era must have heard him because he perked up and quickly moved to jump from the patio towards them. Sasuke couldn't help but smile at the sight of their 2-year-old son running in their direction. His hands in the air as he laughed, "Mommy, Daddy." Sakura knelt down and collected the 2-year-old as Akira stood in front of him. "Dad, I've gotten better. You've got to come see." He grabbed his hand and led him to the spot where he had been standing before. "Alright," Sasuke said, "show me what you got." Sakura laughed, still holding the youngest in her arms, as she made her way to sit beside Hinata. Naruto had stood in past her as he made his way to join the training. "You boys play nice now." Naruto turned and began walking backwards. "Come when what could happen?" His sentence cut short as he tripped over a rock that was protruding from the ground and fell back, landing on his back end. There was a moment of silence before all those present burst into laughter. Sasuke walked over to him and extended a hand to him. "Some shinobi you are." A hint of teasing in his voice. Naruto rubbed his sore spot and took the hand offered. "Anytime anywhere, I'll show you what kind of shinobi I am." The two met eyes, the smell of challenge in the air. Even the children seemed excited. In the blink of an eye, the two were pushed apart and Sakura stood between them, her fingertips digging into their chests. "Did I not say to play nice? The last thing we need is a real fight between the two of you." She glanced at the two of them. "You're both still so damn immature." She stepped out from between them and walked back over to Hinata who was stifling a laugh. He could hear her grumbling as she went, "Stupid macho boys. They never change." Sasuke turned back to his son when he heard him say, "Go mom." A smile on his face. He looked back over at his wife and smiled, "Yeah, go mom." Sasuke and Sakura sat on the patio in their backyard, watching their eldest son practice his difference as the youngest slept in her lap. She stroked his hair, and Sasuke couldn't help but stare at her. She had changed into a soft white slip that flowed around her knees, and he loved how she truly did look like a mother. "Dad?" Sasuke turned to Akira, "I was wondering if you could take me with you when you go training with Uncle Naruto and Kakashi. Would that even be safe?" A 6-year-old near 3 high-level shinobi. Sasuke decided to worm his way out of questions just like any other husband. "Ask your mother. If she says it's okay, then I'll take you." Sakura looked at him shocked and then at Akira. "I don't know if I like that idea. They tend to get rough and I don't want you to get hurt." He pouted, "Aw mom, I'll be careful and dad will be there to make sure I don't get hurt. Please, mom. Just this once. If we know he's there, we won't be as rough. We can even have Naruto bring his kids and make it a learning experience for all 3 of them." Sasuke said. It sounded like fun to show him their training ground. "I still don't know. I hate how competitive you two get and I don't want them to get caught in the crossfire," she said to him in her worried tone. Sasuke leaned in and brushed a kiss to her neck, letting his lips linger as he spoke. "What if you joined us? We can wait for your next day off and it can be like old times. When was the last time you actually trained with the whole team?" "Yeah, mom. I want to see her too. Please mom." He begged. They had trapped her. She sighed, "Fine, but only if Hinata lets the kids come. I do not want you to be the only one out there. I hate it when you gang up on me." Sasuke wrapped his arm around her and placed a kiss on her lips. "Think how much fun it will be to train like we used to as Team 7. He couldn't help but think about it himself. He hadn't thought about Team 7 in so long. He went through his mind and looked back on the old days before he had left. Sasuke really did feel different, he felt happy. He had everything he wanted and he never had to leave home. He had thought having Sakura in his life would hold him back from getting what he wanted, now, she was what he wanted. Haru stirred in his sleep, "I better put him to bed." She lifted him in her arms and stood up. Sasuke watched her walk away as Akira came up to him. "I can't wait till I get to go with you. This is going to be great." Sasuke thought back to when he was Akira's age. Itachi would always be the one to train with him. His father never had time for him and Itachi would make time to train with him even though their mother would always tell them that Itachi had work to do. His favorite training was playing hide and seek with each other. Sasuke looked at his son and poked his forehead. "Yeah, maybe we can play a game of ninja hide and seek while we're at it." His eyes lit up, "Really?" "Yup, now come on, let's go inside and get you washed up before bed." He stood up and his son ran past him into the house. "Race you, dad." Sasuke just continued to walk and laughed to himself. The kids were in bed and Sakura lay sleeping against him. He stared up, letting the stone hand over him. About 1/5 of the stone had turned white. How much time did he have left? He still needed answers. Tomorrow, while Sakura was at work and the kids were busy, he would go into the records and information center of the village. There had to be a way to keep this life. Placing the stone back into his pocket he looked down at Sakura. He kissed her forehead and stroked her back. He wouldn't hurt her again. He couldn't. Sasuke thought back to that night, the one that changed his life. The night that Sakura told him for the first time that she loved him, that she would do anything to make him happy. He knew she had a crush on him, a silly childish crush. Or so he had thought. If he had let her prove it to him, if he had stayed by her side. 15 years later this is where he could have been. He shut his eyes and placed another kiss upon her head. Sasuke was determined to keep this life. The next day, Sasuke sat with a book before him. He had no idea where to begin his search. Looking for the stone itself was doing little for him. He didn't even know the name of the stone. The old woman walked around the questions and just called it what of stone and a stone of dreams. He had flipped through every page of books of items of magical properties and found nothing. Every scroll he searched led to a dead end and all documents were the same. Damn it. There has to be a way. There has to be a way. He mumbled to himself as he shut the book before him. Another dead end. What are you doing, Ichiha? Sasuke looked up and sitting across the table from him sat the old woman. Just the person he wanted to see. I'm searching for a way. She smiled, a way to keep this life. He kept his voice calm, do you know of a way? She laughed lightly, you have finally given in. I knew you would. She paused and sighed, I'm sorry to tell you, but there is no way. When you return to your own time, you will slowly turn back into the man you were and all of this will seem like nothing to you. You will most likely forget everything that happened and just assume it was just a dream. There has to be a way. He growled, pounding his fists on the table, I won't leave her. He paused and lowered her voice, not again. She seemed unfazed by his outburst, no one has ever found one, I apologize. I will find one. He stood and turned away, making his way out of the room. I wish you luck, Ichiha. You will need it. He heard her call after him. Sasuke walked towards the hospital, desperate to see her. When he entered the hospital the nurses immediately pointed him towards her office. Everyone moved from his path as he stormed down the hall. He spotted the door with her name on it and walked right in. She looked up surprised, what are you doing here? She stood up, placing her work down. Without a word he shut and locked the door behind him and walked around the desk. He took hold of her and pushed her against the wall. He pressed his lips to hers letting them linger as he tasted her thoroughly. Sakura responded immediately, her arms circled him, pulling him closer, urging him on. Sasuke broke the kiss and placed his head upon her shoulder, I promise I'll never leave you. I'll find a way. His voice whispered. What did you say? She asked. Nothing, don't worry about a thing. He kissed her again, I just needed to be with you right now. Sakura smiled and led him to the couch on the other side of the room. He sat down and she walked to the door and opened a crack. I'm not to be disturbed the rest of the afternoon unless it is an emergency, is that understood? He heard a soft reply, yes Uchiha-san. She closed the door, locked it, and used a chakra seal on it. She stood at the door with her back to him as she removed the white doctor's coat from her body and let it fall to the floor. Facing him, her whole body gave signs of desire and want. He could feel her body tremble slightly as she straddled his body, her skirt lifting to her waist. Don't force yourself, I was being selfish. I should go. He mumbled. She smiled at him, brushed her lips to his, I trembled from excitement. I can't remember the last time we made love in my office. He smiled back and unhurriedly returned the kiss, letting his hands travel her body. This was the life he wanted. This was the life he had to keep. But he wouldn't think of that now, not when he had her in his grasp. Sasuke lay beneath her as he stroked the smooth flesh of her back, the occasional lines of scars crossing under his fingertips. The slightest imperfection meant nothing to him, her beauty could not be matched by any woman. Sasuke. Her voice is a light moan. Yes. I have tomorrow off. We can drop off Haru with my mother and take the other kids to the training ground. She moved herself to sit upon him, her body light and slender upon his. He looked up at her, that would work. Have you spoken with Hinata about it? Sakura smiled at him as she moved herself off of him and walked across the room, her whole body exposed for him to watch. She opened a tall cabinet and pulled out a small, short red cotton dress and turned to face him. I spoke with her and she agreed to let the twins come and watch the training as well, as long as I was going. She doesn't seem to trust you and Naruto by yourselves. She pulled the dress over her head and let it slip upon her body before returning to him. Sasuke looked at her a little disappointed before he pulled her back down to lay upon his form, don't you trust me? His hand was still roaming over her body. She laughed lightly, of course I trust you. Now come on. I should get back to work and you need to go and get the kids. She attempted to get up, but he held her steady in his arms and just smiled. She sighed playfully, Sasuke, we can't just lay around all day. It was fun when we were younger and had time, but now is the time for us to go do what we have to do, and I have to go to work, and you have to go and get the kids. Alright then. He sat up with her still on his lap and pressed his lips to hers. she responded, pulling her arms around him and parting her velvet lips. His hands on her hips as her body pulsed against his. They parted and Sakura stared into his eyes. Nice try, now get dressed and go get the kids before I kick you out of my office in your naked glory. Her voice stern and hard, the smile still on her face. She said nothing else, patted his head and stood up. He couldn't help but watch the sway of her hips as she walked across the room to her desk. He bent forward and picked up his shirt from the floor. You're quite cold at times, you know that. He pulled his shirt over his head and tugged it down his torso. As soon as his head came out the top she threw his pants in his direction and he caught them just before they hit him. I do what I must. He looked over at her as she slipped on the medical coat that she had dropped at the door, her feet still bare. As he finished dressing, he watched her graceful and silent movements about the room before sitting back down behind her desk to look back at him. Why do you keep staring at me? Her voice filled with a hidden laugh, you're acting like a teen girl in love or something. He walked over to her with a smile on his face and knelt between her legs, maybe because I've fallen in love with you all over again. To him this was the first time he had fallen in love with her, maybe he was acting like a teenager, but he didn't care. He couldn't stop staring at her or keep his hand off her. She had become addicted to drugs, and he liked it. She leaned forward and placed a kiss on his lips. He wanted this drug for the rest of his life. The next day, Sasuke, Sakura, Akira and Haru walked the streets to leave Haru with Sakura's mother. Sasuke just followed his wife's lead since he had no idea where he was going. Akira was filled with excitement as he walked in front of them and continued to call for them to hurry up. Sasuke couldn't help but smile at how his eldest son was acting. When they arrived, Sakura opened the door without knocking and called out, "Hello, Mom. We're here." From the other room Sasuke could hear, "Come in, I'm in the kitchen." They walked in and Sasuke took in his surroundings. The house was not small, but much smaller than their own home. He couldn't help but admire the simple decor. As they walked into the kitchen he saw a small woman, much shorter than Sakura, pouring herself a cup of tea. Sakura walked up to her and hugged the woman. "I'm sorry we haven't been visiting as much, but we've been busy," Sakura told her. "No, I understand. Two working adults with two kids can have such a hectic schedule." The woman turned to Sasuke, "My Sasuke, every time I see you, you seem to get more handsome. I hope my grandson's age is as fine as yours." That's when the boys ran up and hugged her, "Oba-chan." Akira cried as he embraced her. Sakura smiled, "I'm going to say hello to Dad." She left the room silently and was gone. "So you will be taking Akira training with you. Don't you think he's rather young?" the woman said. "I was about his age when I started learning my father's techniques," Sasuke calmly countered. "Well, I just hope you are careful. I don't want anything happening to my grandson." She patted his head. "Oba-chan, we will be careful. And Dad says we might play hide and seek." His voice filled with anticipation. "Oh my, how exciting." Sasuke wanted out and he said the only thing that he could think of, "I think I will go pay my respects as well." He followed through the doorway and found Sakura kneeling in front of a small shrine. Sasuke could feel the small pang in his heart. Her father had died. Sasuke went beside her and knelt as well, and she immediately took his hand. He shut his eyes and thought back to how long ago he had passed. Both of them were 15 at the time, almost 16, and had been secretly dating for almost 2 years. Sasuke stood outside her door to pick her up for training when the door slowly opened. He could feel that she and her father were the only ones home and her father was upstairs asleep. He immediately felt something was wrong. Sasuke." Her voice paused and her shoulders shuddered slightly, eyes cast downward. "I can't go to training today. Please tell Kakashi-sensei that I'm sorry." "Sakura, what's wrong? Are you okay?" His voice filled with concern. "It's my father, he's sick and I have to take care of him." She still did not meet his eyes. He could already tell there was more than she was telling and he was going to find out. He grabbed her shoulders and pushed her inside. He was met with little resistance as he shut the door behind him and pulled her to him. "Tell me what's wrong. You know you can tell me." She clung to him and broke down, her tears flowing freely and her knees giving out, causing them to slide to the floor. It was several minutes before she spoke at all. "He's dying, Sasuke. There's nothing they can do. Tsunade can't save him and he's going to die." Sasuke held her closer as her knees gave out and they both knelt on the floor. "I can't save him." Sasuke said nothing but let her cry till she had no tears left. There on the floor of her house, Sasuke watched as she lost herself in sadness and clung to him. He died 2 months later. He knew how important tradition was to her family. How he was supposed to ask permission from her father to be with her, but couldn't since their relationship was a secret. So while Sakura was on a mission, he went to see him and exposed their relationship and the reason it had to stay secret. Sasuke confessed his feelings for her and his plans to spend the rest of his life with her if she would have him. Her father smiled and told him he was glad his daughter was in good hands. Sasuke knew deep down how much Sakura loved her father. He squeezed her hand reassuringly and gave a silent thanks to his father-in-law. They both stood and walked back to the kitchen where the kids and their grandmother sat eating homemade sweets. Unlike him, the kids had taken a liking to sweet things. Now, Akira, we must be going," Sakura said as she went and kissed her mother on the cheek. "Will was back to pick him up before dinner." "That means you must stay for dinner, I'll make your favorite," she said to her. Sakura smiled, "It's a deal." She turned to him, "Let's go." But that they were out the door and on their way to the training ground. Naruto and the twins were already waiting and had been practicing their kunai throwing. Kakashi was still missing as always. "Sorry we were late, we had to drop off Haru with Sakura's mother," Sasuke said as Akira ran up to join his friends. "It's alright, team. At least you beat Kakashi here." He smiled and turned to the kids. "Should we start without him? Wouldn't waiting for him be more like our times? We spent a lot of time waiting on that bridge for our sensei," Sakura said. All three shinobi laughed. "I told you not to call me sensei anymore." They all turned to see the masked shinobi standing on the branch of a tree. "Well, you're here sooner than expected," Sasuke said to him. There was a puff of smoke and then another as he reappeared near the kids. "Today is a special occasion. We have all of the old Team 7 and their kids. Since when have special occasions made any difference for your arrival?" Sakura scoffed as she walked over to him. Kakashi just smiled under his mask and looked at the kids. "Now who's ready to learn how to climb trees without using their hands?" All three parents went wide-eyed as the kids screamed in excitement. Did Kakashi understand that these kids were only 6 years old and not 12 like they were when they learned how to do it? There was no way he was going to let Akira try that. "Are you crazy? I almost cracked my head open trying to learn that and we were 12 when you tried to teach us that," Naruto screamed. Another smile, "Then what do you suppose we teach them? They are here to train." Sasuke smiled, "Why don't we let them watch us practice? We'll have paired matches, just like old times." "That's a great idea," Naruto said. "That's fine with me, as long as you two aren't paired together." She looked between the two of them. "How about you and me, Sasuke?" Sasuke looked at his wife. Was she serious? That she really wanted to fight with him? The smile that grazed her lips told him she was. It was just a training session, what could it hurt? "Alright then." He heard Akira say, "Mom and Dad are going to fight." A hint of excitement in his voice. Sakura smiled and walked across the clearing, placing her famous black gloves on as he watched her hips sway once more. He would never tire of watching her walk away. This would be interesting. The rest cleared to the side as Kakashi explained simple rules they had to follow since the kids were there. 1. The winner would be declared after the third blood. 2. No using Sannin Justice or other extremely high-level jutsu. 3. Avoid destroying the landscape beyond the battlefield. 4. Try not to cause major damage to your opponent. I guess they did have to restrain themselves since the kids were there. Sakura stood several feet away from him, a playful smile on her lips, her eyes filled with an excitement greater than their son's. "Are you ready, honey?" The last word said sweetly as if mocking him. He smirked, "Whenever you are, darling." He followed her mocking tone. "Alright then, begin," their old sensei said and the two took no time at all to start. Sakura gathered chakra in her hands and ran in his direction before disappearing. Sasuke turned around just in time to duck her attack and swing his leg at hers. She jumped back and landed on her hands before she pounded her feet into the ground, causing it to shatter and shake beneath him. He jumped into the air and disappeared, reappearing right behind her, a kunai in hand. She was fast but not fast enough. He flicked his wrist as he felt her hand graze just above his arm, missing him by an inch. The two jumped apart and landed feet apart. "First blood, both sides," Kakashi said. Sasuke looked at the masked shinobi then to his arm, only to see a thin cut upon his arm from an inch above his wrist to his elbow. Damn. He hadn't even felt it. "Wow, Sasuke, you've gotten so much quicker. I didn't even feel you come up. Mine was just a lucky shot," she said to him before disappearing once more and appearing right in front of him. Sasuke ducked and weaved his way, avoiding all her swings at him, a smile upon his face the entire time. "And I think you've missed too many training sessions, Sakura. You seem to be getting a little slow." He saw the anger rise in her eyes. He wanted her angry. She would get careless in her fury. "I think you should shut up before I make you." She raised her fists in the air and brought them down in a final attack. The ground was like glass beneath her touch as it shattered and shot upward in his direction. He used his arms as a shield as he moved towards her and leapt over her, pushing himself off her shoulders and landing behind her. "Second blood, Sasuke." She stood and turned to face him and then looked at each shoulder. There upon her left shoulder was a thin line of blood from a small pin he had been holding. Her anger turned into fury as she reached into the pouch upon her hip and pulled out a scroll and held it between her hands. Immediately he knew what she was doing and he started doing hand signs as she did. His fire dragon was a second late as his flames shot nothing but the smoke she left behind. He turned this way and that, trying to figure out where she would come from. There was no trace of her chakra anywhere. He closed his eyes and stood still, all he needed was to focus. That's when he felt it, a sudden rush from above. It felt like waves of electricity all over his skin as he looked up to see coming at him with her hands ready to strike. He braced himself for impact before the thought occurred to him that something was not right. That's when he felt her arms around his shoulder and her fingertips across his cheek. "How's that, darling?" Her voice mocking him as the Sakura above him disappeared and only the one who was embracing him was there. Second blood, Sakura. She had tricked him. Damn her. He could feel the soft trickle of blood run down his cheek. She kissed his blood-stained cheek and jumped back, the smile once again upon her lips where traces of his blood were. She was lucky they were not using full power here. This was ending now, he thought to himself. As he turned to fully face her, his hands felt around in the pouch upon his waist and smiled. They were tied and neither wanted to lose. Sasuke waited patiently as Sakura got into stance and brought chakra to her hands. She came at him, her hands held in fists in front of her. All he could do was to dodge her strikes as she took swing after swing at him, her sharp blades chakra flowing around her fists. He flicked his wrists and jumped back, she stopped immediately. There around her neck was the threads he used for his flame, one little tug of his wrists and it would draw blood. "Do it," she said to him, her face stern and serious. He smiled and lifted the hand with the end of the thread. Just as he was about to pull it, Sakura cut through it with the chakra in her hands and took a lunge at him. Just as he thought, he was ready to catch her as their bodies made contact and fell to the floor. Bird blood. A pause, both sides. It's a tie. Sasuke saw the thin line of blood around the front of her neck as she sat up on him and he could feel the new wound on his arm. He had almost not grabbed the end she had cut off in time. She smiled at him and leaned forward to place a kiss to his lips and mumbled, "If you ever go easy on me again, like you did just now, because we both know you gave me the chance to cut the thread, I will make you eat my fist." She pulled away slightly and he smiled up at her, "And what makes you think I did it for you?" Swiftly he turned the tables and hit her pinned to the ground and kissed her deeply and unhurriedly. He pulled back to let them breathe, "Maybe that's what I was really after." She smiled at him as he moved to get up, pulling her up too. At this point the kids were running over, "Mom, Dad, that was so cool." Akira's voice filled with excitement. They both just smiled at him before Sakura took his hand. "Now come over here so I can treat your wounds." He turned to her to see that she had already healed her own wounds and had cleaned up some of the blood that had dried. He sighed and let her lead him to sit on a large rock while the kids watched her seal and clean the wound she herself caused. Sasuke walked down the streets of Konoha, his youngest son sleeping in his arms. The young boy had fallen asleep, his head on his shoulder, Sasuke holding him with one arm, the other carrying bags of things Sakura had sent him to retrieve. Akira's birthday was next week and his wife was going crazy planning out every detail, making sure it was perfect. Ero was left in his care since Ino was on a mission and Sakura did not want him spending the day with her mother. Apparently she spoiled them with sweets and was supposed to help her later with deciding a menu. Sakura continuously reminded him about how she wished the kids had taken his aversion to sweets and not only their love of tomatoes. He wished that he didn't have these errands to run, he could spend this time doing research, trying to find a way to stay with his family. 2/3 of the color remained in the stone and he was becoming more desperate. He needed to find a way, but he had to let his family think nothing was wrong. If he couldn't find a way, he wanted their last moments together to be happy. Even if that meant running errands for his wife. He only had one more thing to do and that was to pick up his son's gift. Sakura had finally settled on getting him a kunai and shuriken set with his name carved into them. His son had always admired the sword Sasuke used that contained his name and clan symbol carved down the blade. Since he was too young to wield a sword, they settled on the kunai set. They entered the shop, his son still not waking, and approached the counter. This was the same shop that had made his father's, brother's and his own weapons. The same man even ran the shop. He heard the sound of rustling and then from behind a curtain the little old man came forth and smiled in his direction, "You're just in time. I finished them last night. Polished them real good." "That's good. My wife would have been upset if I didn't come home with them." He joked lightly but in reality knew it to be true. Sakura was sweet but she still had her temper every now and then. The man laughed and disappeared behind the curtain only to return a minute later, followed by a man matching his age, carrying a wooden box. The man placed the box before him on the counter and stood beside the older man. The old man reached over and lifted the lid to show 3 kunai sitting on red silk and a shuriken placed on the inside of the lid, sitting on the same silk. It was perfect. He reached in and pulled a kunai from the box and held it up to the light. There on the blade was his son's name, Uchiha Akira, written in the traditional Japanese kanji, and at the base was his clan symbol. The handle was wrapped in a red gripped fabric, tightly wound, the blade itself was like a mirror. Absolutely perfect. He placed it back in the box as Haru stirred in his arms. The old man smiled at him. Soon, I will be making this child here his first real set of weapons. Shinobi children grow up fast. Sasuke looked down at his sleeping son. They really do go up fast. Shinobi children did not have as much time to be kids as other children did. Training started as young as 3, were in the academy at 5, handled real weapons at 6. At 12, you are expected to graduate and be ready to die for your village. It was harder on children of bloodlines. Much more was expected of them. Bloodline children, such as his own and Naruto's, were expected to master the families and the of the average shinobi. Families took great care to keep their bloodlines pure and powerful. Most married a normal shinobi with high chakra levels, sometimes they married from their own family. He was lucky, he had Sakura. She was powerful with perfect chakra control, perfect to birth his children. The fact that he loved her more than anything in the world made her perfect in every way. He pulled his son closer very soon. Sasuke walked through the doorway of his home, Haru still sleeping. He removed their shoes at the door and entered the house. The smell of something delicious cooking forced him to the kitchen where he found his wife and her mother standing over the stove. Sakura's mother turned around first, "Oh, there's my littlest grandson." She wiped her hands on a towel, just as said grandson began to wake. She came to him as Haru looked at her and smiled, reaching for her. Sasuke handed him over and placed the bag he held on the table. Sasuke watched her take the boy into the next room before he stepped up behind his wife, wrapping his arms around her form. He buried his face into the curve of her neck and inhaled deep. He loved the smell of her. Always of sakura blossom and honey, even though she never wore perfume. She laughed, "I'm glad you're home," she tilted her head to give him better access. Sasuke let one hand travel underneath the material of her shirt, touching the flesh of her stomach. "Sasuke, we can't. My mother is here. Or did you forget?" He hadn't forgotten, but he didn't care, tonight. He mumbled against her skin as the beat of her heart accelerated under his touch. He pushed against her, pinning her against the counter. One hand on her, the other on the counter, giving her no method of escape. She whimpered lightly, "But I." "No buts." She turned her head to meet his eyes only to find his lips upon hers, her body responding. She said nothing else to him, but parted her lips for him. Sasuke wanted her right then, his body begging for him to lift her on the counter and claim her. Only this woman could awaken this much need from him and have him at her mercy. But he knew how to tame her, how to break her to beg for his touch, just as he was doing now. He broke the kiss and stared into her hazy jade eyes. Her face flushed and her body on the verge of collapse as she leaned against him. He smiled. She would come to him tonight and he would claim her and then taste of her through the night. The rest of the evening went by, Sakura trying hard to hide the burning need he put into her. He just smiled wickedly at her, heating her more. Her mother left before 9 and Haru was tucked into bed. Akira was staying the night at Naruto's house which left them alone for the night. Sasuke came back into the kitchen after checking in on his son to find her standing before the sink. He had removed his shirt in their bedroom, leaving nothing but his black pants, his bare feet soundless on the floor as he moved closer to her. The sound of running water filling his ears, her hands handling bowls in the sink, trying to avoid his gaze. She was more than tempting to him as she was draped in one of his white haori with nothing underneath. She had changed from her work clothes after dinner when she had spilled upon herself. It fell just above her knees and was very thin and sheer. "Sakura, turn around," he said to her, his voice is soft but demanding. She froze as the sound of water stopped, her hands found the counter. "Turn around." More demanding this time, stepping closer to her so that she was in arm's reach. He could see her body tremble, her body moved slowly as she turned herself slowly. She looked down, her breath in little short pants. "He didn't move, look at me." She did not move to meet his gaze. He lifted his hand and gently cupped her face. She whimpered lightly as he lifted her face to see him. He would be gentle with her, he had tortured her enough. He leaned forward and pressed a chaste kiss to her lips, holding her to him. It was bliss. He wrapped his other arm around her as she parted her lips. The moan from her drove him over the edge as both arms found themselves around her and lifted her to sit upon the counter. Sakura took hold of him and her legs wrapped around his waist, making them closer than before. Her hands took hold of his shoulders to brace herself as his hands traveled to the tie of her shirt and made quick work of it. "Sasuke," she gasped, "not here." Her voice in raspy breaths tried to pull away. "Let's go to our room." Sasuke smiled, "What's wrong with here?" He pulled open her shirt and slipped his hands in, the cloth sliding down her shoulders. Her body exposed to him, his hands caressing her curves, traveling her body, begging for a response. she whimpered, Sasuke. Her legs tightened around his waist pulling him closer. Her body trembled as she rubbed her body against his hard length. He hissed through his teeth and reined himself in before he threw her to the floor and took her as roughly as he wanted her. He stroked her cheek and made her meet his eyes, easy love, patience. Her breaths became shallow and deep as she loosened her grip upon him, and Sasuke placed a chaste kiss to her lips, calming her as best he could. He needed to be with her, just to give her a taste. Hands found the hem of his pants and were shrugged to the floor. His length stood strong and tall between them, the tip touching his stomach, her hands reaching for him. He felt her slender fingers glide across his length as he placed himself at her opening. Taking her lips with her own, he kissed her sweetly as he pushed into her gently. She moaned into him, her body trembled more now. One hand braced on the counter, the other caressed her back. It filled her as she cried out, her body squeezing him tightly. He pulled out and once more filled her completely. Sasuke took her slow and easy, kissing, caressing her. His body enjoying the pleasure he gave her as she clung to him, writhed in satisfaction. He would have her for the night and still not have his fill of her. He never would. Her body tightened around him as she cried out, the release building in her. He didn't want her to come here, he wanted her to cry out his name in their room. His arms hooked around her and lifted her off the counter. He held her to him as he carried her down the hall and into their bedroom. The door shut behind them as he turned his back to the bed and fell backwards. Sakura looked into his eyes as she startled his hips, her body now moving freely on its own. His hands found her hips and traveled upward to touch the curve of her thrusting breasts. Each thrust, she impaled herself upon his length and cried out. Her body close to the edge as she quickened her pace, her breaths becoming hollow. Sasuke hissed in pleasure as she tightened around him. His own body is close to erupting with each move her body makes. Hands upon her hips again, he held her, his own body now meeting her thrusts. Sasuke. She cried out as she released, her body squeezing him one last time, throwing him over the edge. Sasuke clenched his teeth as he emptied himself into her passage, filling her more. She whimpered lightly and her breaths came out in pants as she collapsed onto his chest. The heat radiating off her skin soaked into him as he did into her. Her body slick with a sheen of sweat as he wrapped his arms around her pulling her closer to him. This is what he wanted. Sasuke moaned and let his eyes slowly open, he felt her shift her weight and pull herself closer to him. He looked down at her and smiled. This feeling was so new to him, but he didn't want it to ever stop. If he had known that staying here would have led to this, he would have never left. He played with a strand of her rosette locks between two fingers, watching her reactions as she fluttered her eyes and awoke with a light yawn. Good morning, Sasuke. She spoke softly and smiled up at him. Good morning. She moved to sit up and he let her, only because he knew what she wanted. Her body shifted and moved until she found herself straddling his body as she had been the night before. His haori tied loosely around her body letting part of it slide down her shoulder. She looked down at him, a playful smile on her lips, her body rubbing against his, I wish I could read your mind sometimes. I never seem to know what you're planning for me. He sat up, placing one hand on her hip, the other stroked her cheek. If you knew then it wouldn't be a surprise, now would it? He leaned forward and placed a kiss on her lips. She responded to him with a soft moan, making him deepen the kiss. This is how he wanted to wake up every morning, he thought as his hand curved around her body. He was close to taking her once more before letting her leave the bed until they heard, Mom, Dad, I'm home. Are you up yet? Sakura pulled away and responded nervously, we'll be out in a second, Akira, why don't you go and see if your brother is up yet? She then mumbled, damn it, why is he here so early? I thought he would be with them at least till noon. He let her remove herself from the bed and moved to the bathroom, okay, Mom. Sasuke heard him disappear down the hall to his younger brother's room. He turned to the bathroom and watched her brush her hair and tie the haori tighter around her body. She studied herself in the mirror and sighed in frustration. Sasuke removed himself from the bed and followed her into the bathroom and stood behind her, his arms came around her, go ahead and take your shower, I'll prepare them breakfast. Naruto must be here too. She smiled at him through the mirror, thank you love. I really need it. He gave her a small smile and went back into the room to dress himself in a pair of loose black pants. He could hear the water begin to run as he stepped into the hallway, closing the door behind him. As he entered his younger son's room, he found Haru sitting upon the bed with Akira rummaging through the drawers, pulling out clothes for Haru to wear. He was unsure of what to do, so he watched from the doorway. Akira went to the bed and began pulling off his little brother's clothes, only to get the skirt stuck on his head. Sasuke laughed lightly and the children turned toward him. Would you like some help? He said as he walked over and knelt before the bed. It took him only a second to fix the shirt and have it pulled over his head. You always seem to get stuck, don't you? Haru smiled up at him as Sasuke turned to see an upset Akira. His eldest son stared at the floor and said nothing. Sasuke dressed Haru quickly and then knelt before his son. What's wrong, Akira? I should be able to do it. I'm a big kid, but I can't even dress my little brother. His voice was soft and angered. Sasuke placed a hand upon his son's shoulder. Don't be in a hurry to grow up. Besides, you're a great big brother. He turned to his other son, sitting on the bed. Isn't that right, Haru? Haru smiled and nodded. Sasuke thought back to his own big brother. Why did it sadden him to think of Itachi? He hated his brother, didn't he? So when breakfast is around here, I'm starving. The familiar voice took him from his thoughts as he turned to see Naruto leaning on the frame of the door, that foxish grin on his face. Haru jumped off the bed and ran over to the blonde shinobi. Sasuke turned back to his oldest who had a small smile on his lips, and Sasuke stood up. Let's go feed the children, he said looking at Akira and motioning to Naruto and Haru. Akira laughed raced after Naruto who was now heading toward the kitchen excitedly. Sasuke made a simple breakfast of rice and egg for the kids and some instant ramen for Naruto. Even he knew how to make some things. He had been living on his own for so long, and he wasn't like Naruto who could live on instant ramen. He started on making something for himself and Sakura as she came into the kitchen. He cast a brief glance in her direction to see her dressed in a small black tank top with a fishnet shirt over it and a pair of tight black matching shorts. Her hair was still wet and tousled. Good morning, everyone. Her voice is sweet and innocent. Good morning, Sakura. Naruto exclaimed, a small noodle hanging from his mouth. She smiled and then walked over to him. Her arm came around his waist as she looked over at what he was cooking. What's for breakfast? Rice and egg. Go sit down and I'll serve you. He said to her. She looked up and smiled at him before going to the table and pouring herself a cup of tea. Sasuke quickly finished and served to her and himself before sitting at the table. Sakura poured him a cup of tea and they ate their meal. Sasuke had the day off and needed to use that time wisely. He headed to the records building and began his search where he left off. He was going to go mad in here. No matter where he looked, he could find nothing to help him. He found brief mentions of it here and there, but nothing useful. He still could not even properly name the stone. He would not give up though. This is the life he wanted, the life he needed to keep. He thought back to his life before he came here. Where was Sakura in his lifetime? Was she already married? Was she happy without him? Did she think about him still? He sighed, probably not. He had hurt her so much. She most likely moved on and was with someone else, someone who had always respected her and treated her right. He had a sudden thought of Sakura and Lee together and cringed. She wouldn't be with him, would she? Sasuke placed his head on the table. Was he being selfish by doing this? Maybe Sakura was happy with her current life. Maybe everyone was better off with him leaving. Sasuke clenched his fist and thought back to what he really wanted. He wanted Sakura, he wanted her happy, he needed her to be happy. Their kids would not exist. What else would change with him gone? His presence wouldn't change life that much, would it? Maybe he was never meant to have this life. He chose to leave, and he missed out. This was his punishment for all his sins. He was brought here and cannot find a way to stay. He finally felt emotions for someone other than himself, and they would be taken from him. He had a family again and would lose them in the blink of an eye, just like before. This was his punishment. He was at a crossroad. He was unsure about everything. He was running out of time, and his mind was filled with thoughts about her, their sons, and the life he had. Maybe he should keep looking, maybe he should just accept it and enjoy the time he had. He did not deserve all of this, his heart was cold, he was meant for revenge. Was he worthy of this life, this happiness that was so rare to him? He loved her, he loved his sons, he wanted to stay. He shook his head and pounded his fists. Sasuke was truly at a crossroad. The days seemed to go by quickly. His son's birthday had approached, and Sakura was trying to keep Choji from eating everything she took off the stone grill by promising to give him the last piece. Temari and Shikamaru had showed up and were catching up with everyone. He could feel some tension between Ino and Shikamaru, but shrugged it off. Kakashi and Guy were drinking sake, Shino was standing beside Kiba who was giving rides on Akimaru to some kids, and there were several others he didn't know. He stood with Naruto watching the other kids throwing kunai at targets. They had to make sure no one got hurt. Akira ran up to him, "Dad, is it time to open presents?" His eyes hoping and begging. "Ask your mother, she's the one who planned this all." He said to him. Akira only smiled and ran to his mother. Sasuke watched him go. He's already 8. Time seems to go by so fast. It feels like just yesterday that Sakura found out she was pregnant with him. Naruto sighed and turned to his own kids. Same thing with mine, I don't want them to grow up so fast. Soon, they will be off on missions and risking their lives, and we will be at home worrying about them. I don't like it. You worry too much, Naruto. They have us to train them. They should be fine. Sasuke said. He would not admit that he was just as scared as Naruto about his children growing up. Sasuke, come over, we're getting ready to open gifts. He heard his wife call to him over the noise. The kids all heard and rushed over as well. Both he and Naruto took their time in making their way over to the table piled with gifts. Sakura wanted to save their gift for last, so he watched as his son opened different toys, special training kunai and other shinobi training tools. He was amazed at how sociable his son was. At his age, he was usually alone and didn't really have friends his own age. Now it's time for our gift. Sakura said excitedly as she looked up at Sasuke. He reached down and pulled from under the table the wooden box with a large red bow upon it and placed it in front of his son. Placing his hand on his son's back he said, "Here you go, Akira." His son's eyes lit up as he recognized the box as being similar to the one Sasuke kept his weapons in, the only difference was that it had his name carved into the wood instead of Sasuke's. Akira ripped off the bow and unlatched the box to open it. His smile grew as he looked inside. He reached in and grasped one of the kunai by the handle and pulled it out. All the kids were in awe at the smooth and clear reflective surface. Akira turned to his father and had a huge smile on his face. "These are just like yours." Sasuke placed his hand on his son's head, "Yes, but these are yours." Sakura hugged their son and placed a chaste kiss on his cheek, "Happy birthday, Akira." The birthday passed and time seemed to speed up. He had picked up a routine and done a few missions, not forgetting to see his wife before leaving for those missions, and it was as if the time seemed to mull together. It had been about 4.5 months since he first arrived. Sasuke looked at the stone and was shaken at how much of the color was gone. Less than a quarter of it remained red. He grasped the stone tightly in his hand and shut his eyes. Time was running out. He had found nothing new that would help him keep this life. The old woman had not appeared to him since the last visit in the record room. He needed to speak with her, he had to plead with her once more. He lay on the couch of the living room and stared at the ceiling, hoping for a sign of what he had to do next. His eyes shut softly as he laid a hand over them, wanting all his problems to disappear. "Sasuke." A sweet voice called out to him. "Yes, Sakura." He responded without moving an inch. He suddenly felt the pressure of her body at his waist and the feel of her need was present. He moved his hand away from his eyes and stared up at her, "What are you up to?" She smiled at him, "Let's go out." "Out?" "Yeah, when was the last time we went out, just the two of us?" She leaned forward and smiled, "A nice picnic in the forest or a trip up the mountain to look out on the village. What do you say?" He placed his hands to her hip, "Sure, why not?" She smiled again and kissed his lips, sending a jolt of excitement through his body. He would not push her today. He would give her the date that she wanted. He only had a couple weeks at best with her and he wanted her happy all that time. Sakura clung to his arm as they walked down the street. The basket of food she had prepared was on his other arm. She had decided to go out into the fields where the sakura blossoms were in bloom. He had seen these trees hundreds of times, but when he watched her excitement grow as they reached the field, she took off and twirled beneath the trees, petals falling gently around her. He couldn't help but think that they had never been this beautiful. "Sasuke, over here. This is the perfect spot. Do you remember this spot?" She stood beneath a tree, her eyes cast upward with a hand on the trunk. She turned to face him and smiled softly in his direction. As soon as he saw her beneath the tree he was taken back to something he had seen before, back when he first arrived. One of the first flashbacks he had. Their kiss underneath the cherry blossom tree after the festival. He remembered her kimono and pulled them closer. It was under this tree that they shared that kiss many years ago. He placed the basket down and stepped in front of her, his hand on her upon the tree as he leaned forward, a kiss to her lips, hand on her hip, "Of course. You looked beautiful in that kimono." She mumbled against his lips, "You really remembered. I'm impressed." She returned the kiss as her free hand went to the back of his head to let her fingers run through her hair. His fingers on the tree traced some of the wood and the carving in the tree that you insisted on. They both turned to the tree as they moved their hands down slightly to show the same carving that was etched into their wedding bands. The Uchiha fan and the cherry blossom overlapping. This had been the defining moment that for the first time could almost be seen as a couple. Sasuke no longer thought of her as a partner, but as the one person he could not live without, the one person he needed more than anything in his life. Sakura vowed once more that she would be his for as long as she lived. They still kept it a secret as best they could. Naruto hadn't put together that they were going out until the very end when it was revealed. He blamed Sasuke's protective nature and concern for Sakura only on the fact that they were teammates. Everyone else had the idea in their heads that something had been going on between them, but no one said anything. As soon as Orochimaru's dead body hit the floor, he appeared beside her, pulling her from her knees into his arms and placing his lips to hers, demanding she be his. The cries of question and disbelief from their blonde teammate faded into the background when she responded and wrapped her arms around his form. He remembered it as if he had lived it and in this life he had, but he remembered that this wasn't his life. He would soon leave her and everything he ever wanted. The blanket had been laid out as he sat with his back leaning on the tree, her body curled up against him. His hand stroked her back as her fingers traced patterns into his chest. Sasuke. Huh? He responded with little reaction. When we were younger, I always used to think about how different life would have been for us if we didn't have each other, and it made me sad. Now I can't imagine life without you. Her voice is soft. I want you to know how grateful I am that you stayed with me, that you put up with me through the years, even though I was so annoying. She giggled at the last word before speaking again. I love you. Her voice mumbled against his chest. He could feel his heart pang and a desperate want for it to be true. He wanted to tell her that everything would be okay, that he would never leave her, but he couldn't. All he could do was place a kiss on the top of her head and say, I love you, too. Sasuke lay on the couch of his living room, staring up at the stone that had brought him there. He twirled the chain between his thumb and forefinger and watched a pinprick of blood pool at the bottom of the milk-white stone. He was out of time. He could shut his eyes at any moment and be sent back to the life he had come to hate. There was no Sakura there, no Akira, no Haru. He would lose his family again. In the kitchen, he could hear Sakura making lunch for them. The running water almost made her soft musical hum disappear, but he could always hear it. The water stopped as her footsteps came closer to him. He clasped the stone in his hand as she came to stand beside him. He met her emerald eyes, and a tinge of pain came to his heart. Sasuke, lunch is ready. Her voice is soft and inviting. He lifted a hand as she took it immediately, only to be surprised when he pulled her down to him, her body straddling his own. She sat up as he held her to him, hands taking hold of her waist. He said nothing to her, his eyes still holding hers. She smiled at him before leaning forward, placing a kiss on his lips. Her lips lingered close to his as he closed the gap again and pulled her to him once more. She moved closer, her head nuzzled against his neck. The feel of her body against his was all he needed. I love you. His voice was no more than a whisper. Her breath was light in his ear. I love you, too. He would cherish the time he had left, making every second count. After lunch, he played in the yard with his sons. Sakura joined them for a bit before sitting off on the side and watching. Every second was precious to him. Say goodnight to your father, kids. Sakura said as she ushered them inside. Night, Dad. Akira said as he raced into the house. Haru grabbed and tugged lightly on his pants. Sasuke looked down at him and smiled before lifting him up. Good night, Haru. The little boy smiled and hugged him before his mother came and took him from him. Come on. She smiled as Haru hugged her and waved goodbye to him. He watched as she turned away from him, Haru's little eyes catching him over her shoulder, giving him another wave before they disappeared around the corner. He sighed and leaned against the house. It would all be over, he could do nothing, he had failed. Shutting his eyes, he took hold of the stone in his pocket and wished for it to all be a dream. That his other life never happened, that this was his real life, that's what he wanted. His body slid down the rail until he sat upon the floor. Wishing isn't enough, I'm afraid. Sasuke knew that voice. His eyes shot open as he stared at the old woman that had started this whole thing. She stood no more than 4 feet from him, her cane grasped in both hands before her, supporting all her weight. If it weren't for her and her damn stone, he would have never known of this life, he would have remained satisfied with what he had. Now he would be haunted by this. His anger grew. I suggest you remove yourself from my sight unless you bring me good news. His voice dripped with disdain. I'm sorry, I'm the opposite. She paused and took a deep breath. Your time is up, Ichiha. The next time you close your eyes to sleep you will return to your time, the same day that you left it. You will remember the time spent here for a short time, then it will be nothing but a dream to you, and you will once again turn into the cold stoic person you were. Is this how you get your kicks, old woman, letting a man taste paradise, then take away from him? He scoffed, and then you expect him to forget about it. She smiled, you should be grateful, some men will never know how wonderful their lives could have been if they hadn't thrown them away. He pulled out a kunai from the holder on his leg and stabbed it into the wood beside his leg. Sometimes it is better to be kept in the dark than be blinded by the light. She sighed, take it as you will, Ichiha. I've delivered my message. Say your farewells, enjoy this night, for it is your last. He shut his eyes, my farewells mean nothing here. He opened his eyes, knowing the old woman would be gone. He wanted her gone. He wished he had never met her. Sasuke stood up and stared up at the stars that seemed to mock him with their happy twinkle. If this was his punishment for all the things he had done, then he would have to call himself a masochist for wanting it to never end. He turned, went inside and headed to their bedroom. He stopped suddenly, just outside Akira's room. The moon lighting the room allowed him to see his son lying upon the bed. The small even breaths told him that his son was already fast asleep. He walked in and sat upon the edge of the bed. Placing a hand upon his son's head, letting his fingers comb through his hair. He sighed, I'm sorry I won't get to see you become a man. His voice a whisper of regret. Akira said nothing in return, it was best that way. He could not tell them he was leaving, they would not understand. It was his burden to carry anyway. He leaned forward and placed his forehead against his son's. You would have been a great shinobi. He stood and went to the doorway and looked over his shoulder. I'm proud to call you son. His next stop was the room of his younger sons. Harry did not stir as he knelt beside the small bed. Sasuke looked down at his son as he turned in the bed to face him, his small hand gripping the sleeve of his shirt. A silent prayer for him to stay. Sasuke smiled, I wish I could stay too. Once more, Sasuke leaned forward and placed his forehead to the young child's. The grip upon his sleeve loosed, allowing him to stand. He walked silently from the room, allowing himself one glance back before he found himself at the door to their bedroom. He shut his eyes and opened the door, walking in and shutting it behind him. Finally looking up to the bed where he saw his wife sitting up in the bed, a scroll in her lap, her knees brought up to support the scroll. She was dressed in only one of his old shirts that now bunched at her knees, giving him a peek of what she wore underneath. She looked up from her scroll and met his eyes and seemed to study him. What's wrong? Her voice was concerned. He turned away from her and took hold of the hem of his shirt, pulling it over his head. Nothing, I just. His words cut off as he felt her arms wrap around him, her fingers grazing over her body. Sasuke could feel her body press against his, her heat scorching his bare flesh. What's wrong, Sasuke? She loosened her grip as he turned to face her. Her cheek lay over his heart as she held him tighter once more. He placed one hand on the small of her back as the other stroked her cheek. He cupped her chin and lifted her gaze to meet his. Her emerald eyes pierced him to his core as she stared at him with love and compassion. It was all he could do but lean forward and place a chaste kiss to her lips. His lips trailed across her cheek to her neck. I need to be with you right now. She pulled away and stared at him once more, a smile on her face. Taking hold of his hands in hers, she brought them to her lips before leading him to the bed. She said nothing as he moved closer to her. She released his hands and he watched as her delicate fingers worked on the tie of his pants. She closed the space between them as her hands pulled him free of his clothing, his pants pulled at his feet. Sasuke leaned forward and she met him for a kiss, her lips parted for him welcomingly. He tasted her thoroughly as his hands moved down her body till he found the hem of her shirt. She pulled away slightly so he could lift the shirt up her body, his fingertips grazing over her flesh. She released the breath that she had been holding as he freed her from her clothing, the shirt discarded on the floor. The space between them closed once more as he held her to him, the feel of her bare form against him sending waves of need through him. In desperation, he lifted her up in his arms, holding her bridal style. A gasp of surprise escaped past her lips but was muffled by his lips meeting hers. He laid her upon the bed, his body moved to cover hers. Her hands moved around his neck, fingers feathering through his hair. She pulled him down and met him with a kiss. His body pushed her into the bed, one hand holding him up, the other one roaming over her body. She broke the kiss and stared at him with hazy jade eyes, a silent cry of need and want. His fingers traced small circles upon her thighs, causing her to whimper softly. He smiled as he moved them between her legs and stroked her over the fabric of thin silky material that covered her heated core. He watched as she shut her eyes and bit her lips, head thrown back with pleasure. He took the chance to place a kiss on her neck, letting his lips linger a bit. Her nails scraped against his back before she dug them into him, sending a wave of excitement through him. Sasuke, please. She begged him for more. The gentle strokes he was giving her were not enough to sate her. He smiled against her flesh, if you insist. His voice is playful and empowered. He hooked the now soaked martial and pulled it down her body, across the miles of leg. Her legs came into the air as the panties reached the end and were thrown to the floor. He held her ankle in his hand and let his grip move down her body as he positioned himself between her legs, occasionally placing a kiss to the soft skin of her legs. One hand found the treasured bud that dwelled between her legs. His fingers stroked her lightly, gazing at her bud, causing her to cry out, to bite her lip in frustration. He inserted a single finger into her core and then another, only to be met with the sweet nectar that pooled between her legs. Sasuke. She cried out, her body arched to try and take him in deeper. He smiled at her response. He would take her slowly, enjoy the feel of her, and watch her succumb to the pleasure he would give her. Thrusting his fingers into her once more, he let his thumb press the butt of her sex. He took her to her peak, thrusting another finger into her, caressing and stroking her, till she seemed to be on the point of breaking. Her whimpers and moans of approval urged him on. Sasuke could no longer hold back, he leaned forward and took one of her hardened peaks between his teeth. He massaged her breast with one hand as the other continued to thrust into her. She was his for this moment, even for this one night, she saw all his. Her hand clutched the muscle of his upper arms, nails digging into his flesh. A long and delicate moan filled his ear. He matched her moan with a low, possessive growl as his body traveled down hers. His lips brushed her searing flesh, tasting the sweetness of her skin. He needed to taste her more, taste her thoroughly before he claimed her. Her hands released his arms and grazed his skin before clutching his hair, pulling him closer to her body. She cried out as he traced a circle around her navel with his tongue, his fingers still thrusting lightly into her heated core. His member twitched with excitement at her response. He loved making her feel good, making her moan his name. Sasuke. There it was. He loved the sound of his name on her lips. His body couldn't help but respond to her again, his length brushing against his stomach, begging to be used. Pulling his hand from the heat inside her, he took her hips in his grasp, bracing himself on his elbows. Her legs spread open for him, hooking over his shoulders, the heels of her feet digging into his back. I need to taste you. His voice was rough and desperate. She had no time to respond before his mouth was on her. Her body arched into him, crying out as he took hold of her bud with his tongue. He thrust his tongue deep inside of her, tasting her thoroughly. She pulled at his hair, demanding more, pulling him closer. Her small whimpers of approval filled his ears, and the sweetness of her poured from her nether lips into his. He gripped her harder and thrusted deeper, wanting all of her. Her body shivered as she cried out and released the bud of ecstasy she had been holding. She flowed freely into his mouth, his tongue taking all of her in. He parted his lips from her and looked up at her body to meet her eyes. You are so beautiful, Sakura. Her body coming down from its high, stopped breathing for a brief second before reaching for him, a smile on her lips. Come here, I want to hold you. Her voice pulling him towards her. He moved up her body just as he had traveled down it, his lips brushing her searing flesh. Her arms took hold of him as soon as he was in reach. The feel of her wandering hands upon his body heated him more. He was desperate to be inside her. His body lay between her parted legs, his length brushing against his stomach, hard and ready for her. Sasuke was finally over her once more, laying a kiss to her parted lips. She welcomed him, running her hands through his hair, legs wrapping round her body. His length was hard and ready as it pressed against her stomach. With one hand he took hold of his manhood and placed it at her entrance. She whimpered in anticipation as it rubbed against her, teasing her, making her writhe in need and want. In one quick thrust he was in her way, her body squeezing him tightly. Sakura. He gasped. She felt incredible. She always did. Her body was always burning and slick with her own desire. Her body was built just for him to sheath himself within her folds and make love to her. It was all he could do not to thrust into her, slowly and surely. He wanted this feeling or being wrapped in her forever. Each pace thrust was met with a groan and whimper from whom he wasn't sure. It didn't matter anyway. What mattered was that he was here with her, feeling her hands gripping his body, her heated core caressing him to his peak. He needed her in his life, needed the feel of being inside her. Sasuke. Her voice soft and tinged with her pleasure. He met her haze-filled eyes, still thrusting within her, her parted lips begging to be touched. He smiled down at her before pressing his lips to hers. Her body tightened around him, gripping his length, pushing him over the edge with her. Her cry of bliss was muffled by his kiss as he was. He could feel himself empty with her walls, still enjoying the caress of her body around him. Their lips parted as they stared at one another for a moment before he placed his forehead upon her shoulder. His length still nestled within her. They both panted for breaths as they came down from their peaks. He felt her hand stroke his back, fingertips tracing the line of his spine. Placing a kiss to her neck, he pulled away from her to lie on his back before bringing her to lie upon him. Her head now nestled upon his chest, her arm around his waist. He took her into his arms and held her to him. Sasuke. Yes, Sakura. I wanted to talk to you about something. What is it? He wanted her to speak to him forever. That way, he could never go to sleep and stay with her forever. Placing a kiss to her head, he rubbed her back, letting his hands wander her small frame before covering them with a blanket. I was thinking about the boys. What about them? They are growing up really fast, and she paused. And he raised an eyebrow. And I was thinking that we should have another baby. At that Sasuke sat up, taking her with him, placing her upon his lap facing him. She braced herself upon his shoulders and bit her lip in anticipation of his answer. He stared into her eyes, hoping to find the answer he should give her. Sasuke, say something. A nervous tone to her voice. He shook his head, are you sure? Yes. I really want a daughter, someone I can spoil and train myself. He searched her eyes once more. You know how rare it is that an Uchiha gives birth to a female child. Yes, I know. But it wouldn't hurt to try. And don't you want to know what it would be like to have a little girl? Someone you have to protect from all the boys and treat her like a princess. She teased him. He smiled. That did sound nice. To have a little girl. 2 older brothers and a father to protect her, a mother to train her, and parents that would spoil her. He pulled her close and placed a kiss on her neck. All right. If it's what you want. Sasuke felt a sharp pain in his chest. He would no longer be here to witness the birth of this daughter she had dreamed for them. His punishment would never end, would it? He lay back on the bed, taking her with him. she embraced him with excitement. They lay there in silence, listening to the sounds of the night surrounding their home. Suddenly she sighed, "I love you, Sasuke." He took a deep breath, his eyes getting heavy. "I love you too, Sakura." But that his eyes slowly shut. "Damn it, no, not yet, not yet." Sasuke felt a pain in his chest as he bolted up in bed. The room lay in darkness, the bed was back to being the small twin, the windows hidden behind thick curtains. He attempted to move from the bed, only to have his knees give out. As he knelt on the floor he could only stop and pray that it was all a cruel dream. As he reached into his pocket the stone felt smooth between his fingers as he grabbed the cord it hung by. Holding it in his grasp, he pulled it out and held it upon his palm. The stone was no longer the blood red it used to be. On his palm was now a stone of milk white. He clenched his fist and threw the stone across the room, his hand extended before him, he froze at the sight. There, upon his finger was the silver band he had worn every day while he was with her. Bringing it closer he removed it from his finger and in the dim light could see the Uchiha fan and Sakura blossom carved on the inside of the band. He clutched within his hand before placing it back on his finger. It couldn't end like this. He had to find her. He had to see her, to see if she was happy without him. Gathering his stuff, he raced out the door and headed in the direction of the only place he had ever called home. "Wait for me, Sakura. I will see you soon." Sasuke, by nightfall, stood just outside of the village hidden within the branches of the trees, hidden from the world. He couldn't let anyone else know he was here, not yet, not until he saw her. This was all for her. All that mattered was that she was happy. He felt a pain fill his heart at the thought of her already with someone else. If she was, he would leave, but he had to see her first. Just once. All he needed was one time, he kept saying to himself, hoping if he said it enough it would come true. His chakra masked, he made his way closer to the wall of the village and watched the guards. This was going to be easier than he thought it would be, all he would have to do was find her. Jumping the wall he quickly made his way to the training ground to stand beside the memorial stone. This was where they first became Team 7. He walked over to the log that Naruto had once been tied to and laughed inwardly at the memory. A sudden voice and the sound of footsteps brought him back to his current situation as he jumped and hid in the trees nearby. "Naruto, is it really okay for us to come at such a late hour?" A male voice that sounded familiar but he could not place. "I always come here after I get back from a mission, I have to." His voice grew softer at the last words. The two entered his line of view as he saw his old teammate and Lee, both in Anbu uniform, approach the memorial stone. They were the last two people he wanted to see at the moment. "Naruto, it has been 5 months," he paused, bit his lip and then continued, "do you think the pain will ever stop?" The blonde took a deep breath, "It will lessen, but it won't ever go away." The air fell silent for a few moments. He couldn't help wondering who it was they lost. Suddenly Sasuke felt the hairs on his neck stand up. "Can you come out now, or do you plan to stay hidden?" Only the blonde's eyes moved to see him in his hiding place. Sasuke was unsure if Naruto could see him or only knew of his presence. Sasuke had no choice, maybe they would tell him where he could find her and be done with this waiting game. Jumping down, he landed several feet behind them, wanting the distance in case things turned violent. They turned to face him, Naruto's expression never changed, but Lee's eyes were filled with murderous anger. Naruto was the first to say, "What do you want, Sasuke?" He kept his tone cold, "I'm just here to see someone." Naruto gave a foxish grin, "You're here to see her, aren't you? After all these years?" Lee looked surprised at Naruto, then turned his anger back on Sasuke as if he realized who Naruto was speaking of before he stood in stance to leap at him, "Why you, I." Naruto cut him off by placing his arm in front of him. "Don't, Lee, he isn't worth the effort." His eyes cast downward, his hair hiding his eyes, but not his growing smile, "I don't think he even knows." Naruto stood up straight to meet his eyes before Sasuke spoke. "What is it that I don't know? Was it his worst fear? Has she moved on? Had she found someone else?" Without turning around Naruto addressed the angry shinobi behind him, "Lee, why don't you go get her, I'll keep our guest here." Lee looked confused, "But, Naruto, she's." "Just do it, I believe she's at the records vault." His tone turned slightly darker. Lee's face grew straight, then nodded, "I understand." And he was gone. What were these two up to? Were they planning on turning him in? He had to be cautious with his next step. Taking a step forward, hand on the head of his sword. Naruto made no move towards him, but turned and took a step towards the memorial stone, placing a hand upon its cool surface. The thick silence between felt bitter on his tongue. Sasuke had to wait and let it just gather till his old teammate broke the silence. "Can I ask you a question?" His hand slid across the stones, as if tracing a name. "Do I have a choice?" His voice is steady and bitter. He chuckled to himself, "I guess not." Taking a deep breath, he continued, "Why now, after all these years? Why come back now?" Sasuke couldn't really tell him the truth, he would never believe him. Letting go of the hilt of his sword, his eyes cast toward the sky, he said, "It's just something I had to do." He paused, "And what about you? What are you doing here so late? Shouldn't you be at home with your wife?" He scoffed, "What wife? She has been my sole purpose all this time, why would I look at someone else? Who do you think has been taking care of her all the time you were gone?" Sasuke hid his surprise. So Naruto didn't marry Hinata, he was still in love with Sakura. Had his choice ruined Naruto's and Hinata's happiness as well? He thought as his mind wondered about the life they would have had, the twin that would never be. Naruto broke his thoughts once more. "What did you come to say to her?" Sasuke scowled, "That's between her and me. What if you can't speak to her, then what?" Was he suggesting that she would refuse to see him? The thought never crossed his mind. Sasuke crossed his arms, his senses on alert for Lee's return and for his blossom, "Then I will leave. I have no other reason to stay." She wasn't reasoned enough before. What has changed? His anger grew at playing this game, like I said before, that is between her and I. Before Naruto could respond, they both felt Lee's return moments before he landed beside the blonde. He returned alone but held a small records book with him. His anger and disappointment rose. She had refused to see him. She wanted nothing to do with him. Lee handed the book with a hesitant hand. Naruto took it and nodded, "Leave us." "But, Naruto, he stammered. Naruto cut him off once more, "I know. Leave us and tell no one." Lee glared in Sasuke's direction before disappearing once more. Sasuke did not like the feel of this. "You knew she would refuse to see me, didn't you?" He smiled slightly. "Well then I will go to where she is and I will make her tell me in person." He had to try, he had to see her. Fine then, Naruto took a side step and turned to face him, hands still on the stone as he stood to its left, "Come closer, I promise not to bite." Sasuke stared at him confused but took the steps to stand before the stone beside him, his eyes never leaving the blonde's. A chill ran through him. "What games are you playing?" "No games, Sasuke. You are the one that wants to see her and I will let you." He turned to the stones, "She's here." His hand moved slightly on the stone, grabbing his attention as his eyes turned to what Naruto had been covering. Sasuke had been wrong. This was his worst fear. He could feel every fiber in his being shattered into millions of pieces. There on the stone was all his hope for happiness. In neatly carved kanji were two words. Haruno Sakura. Before Sasuke could react, Naruto roughly pushed the book he held into his chest, causing Sasuke's hands to grab it. 8 months ago, she went on a mission alone, she never reported in. After 2 months, a search party was sent and they found nothing. A month after that she was found just outside the village walls, dead. Sasuke took a step back and looked down at the book in his hands. This was the case book. All he could do was stare at it. Naruto's voice made the hairs on his neck stand, "Open it. You wanted to see her, didn't you?" He tried hard to hide his trembling hand but failed as he opened it to the first page. His eyes scanned the page. It was her death certificate dated 5 months ago, almost to the day. He turned the page once more and felt his stomach churn. His eyes stared in disbelief at the picture before him. It was of his beautiful Blossom. Her arms bound and tied together, high above her head as she dangled from a tall tree branch like a baited hook. Her body dressed in the blood-soaked clothes of their enemy. The Akatsuki robe. She was bound and hung from that tree alive. According to the reports, she lived a few hours before bleeding to death. Naruto's voice grew harsher, "I wasn't there for her when they found her. I got to see her cold at the hospital morgue. Do you know what they did to her?" Sasuke couldn't speak, there were no words to describe what he was feeling. Naruto must have grown impatient with his silence because suddenly the book was taken from his hands and the page was turned to sight that made him want to fall to his knees. Naruto pushed the open book in his direction for him to see, "Do you see?" He did. Her body lay upon a white sheeted table, arms in her side, all her tortured flesh exposed. Sasuke had to shut his eyes and turn away from the book, but Naruto would not let him escape. Naruto turned him back and placed the book up to his face, his voice growing aggressively, "They carved into her skin, repeatedly, leaving their marks all over her body. They raped her, beat her, bled her, and bound her for months. They tortured her and left her to die when they were done." Naruto then pointed to the freshest wound that was in the center of her stomach, a symbol of the nine-tailed beast. "They did this to her because of me, wanting to lure me out, gather information from her. It was my fault." Naruto lowered the book and his features grew soft, "And yours?" Sasuke stared at him and spoke the first words that he could find in all the clutter of thoughts in his mind, "And how is this my fault?" "Because she could never let you go. You were all she could think about sometimes. She was determined to bring you home. And you were the reason for the mission she was on when she went missing." Naruto paused, took a deep hissed breath, "I was out on mission when she got an anonymous lead about someone who knew where you were. They said she was excited and refused to wait till I returned and went on her own. They never saw her alive again." Sasuke stared at him in disbelief. Sakura was always the smart one, she would never risk a mission alone, no matter how easy it seemed. Was he really responsible? Naruto must have read his face. You don't believe me? He smiled and lifted the book and turned to a page at the end. We found her journal after her death in hope of finding out where she got her anonymous tip from. He then turned it towards Sasuke. Read it. Sasuke's eyes scanned the page to see her neat handwriting on a page that looked like it had been torn out from a smaller book and clipped inside the record book. I'm getting closer. I know I am. I've received a tip that there is someone in a village in the land of waves that may know where Sasuke is and know how to contact him. He is supposedly the village blacksmith and weapons maker. I'll be heading out in the morning to find this man. If there is a chance that he can lead us to Sasuke, then I will hunt him down to the end of the world. It hurts sometimes to think about him. It pains me when I think that I may never see him again. I feel stupid sometimes for still loving him, even after all this time I still want him. No matter what he has done in the past, I know there is still that part of him that I fell in love with deep down. I am determined to rescue that side of him that no one else seems to see. Sasuke shut the book and threw it to the ground. She still loved him. Even after all that happened, after all he put her through. She still wanted him in her life. But he was too late. She was gone. He would never get to tell her how he felt, never get to wake up to her lying beside him. Why did he have to come back to this time? Just last night he had made love to her, promised her a little girl, held her in his arms, and now she was gone. He never noticed Naruto pick up the book and turn away from him, but he did hear his voice, "Leave, Sasuke, with her gone, you have no business on Konoha soil. Next time I see you, you will be registered as a missing nun and I will be forced to kill you." With that his old teammate was gone. And he was alone once more. Sasuke fell to his knees and pounded his fists into the earth beneath him. It was over. He had nothing left. He had been shown paradise only to have it stripped from him and replaced with hell. The images of her death were enough to make him sick and filled with anger. Those men had touched her, degraded her and then left her there, taunting them. Things not working out for you, Uchiha. Things not working out for you, Uchiha. Sasuke did not turn nor face the voice, he knew who it was. He wanted nothing to do with that wretched woman. All he wanted was to be left alone. Kneeling there in silence, he pressed his forehead to the cool stone, his fingers tracing the characters of his lost love's name. Do you have anything to say? Leave me, woman, let me grieve in silence. Have you not done enough to torment me? His voice was on the verge of shattering. I've done nothing. This is your own doing. You caused this to happen. The old woman sighed, what a terrible thing to happen to such a sweet girl. What a pity. Sasuke clenched his fist, his teeth grinding together. Why wouldn't this hag leave him alone? Why did she have to remind him of all he has lost? He unclenched his teeth, why are you here, what business do you have left with me? Did you not already take away everything? Did you not take away my joy? Or did you just come to watch my suffering? I would not do such a thing, young Uchiha. I hate that you are suffering. I do wish you could have stayed, but I do not have that power, I cannot change history as I please. She paused, but you do. Sasuke turned to face the woman. She sat upon the stone bench to his right, her feet hovering above the earth, her cane across her lap. She was just as he remembered. He waited for her to continue, waited for her to answer his prayers for a better life, but she said nothing, only sat there in her silence and waited. Sasuke stood, you say I have the power to change this, but then you go silent. What games are you playing? Do you enjoy tormenting me? How? How can I change what I have done? She smiled, I cannot send you back to the world you saw. I do not have that power and I have no more stones to give you. His heart sank, would his suffering never end? He turned back to the stone and sat with his back to it. He would sit here and wait for Naruto to come and keep his word and end his life. This was how it should end, he could be with her in death if he could not have her in life. You should let an old woman finish before you decide to sulk, you are still as rude as I remember. She sighed, come closer, come kneel before me. Her fragile hands motioned him forward. He hesitated but stood once more and came forward. What did he have to lose? What can she take from him that he hasn't already lost? He fell to his knees before her, surrendering all to her as his head fell to stare at the earth below them. He felt her hand push his hair like the caress of a mother. Her hand came under his chin and lifted his head to meet her eyes. You may look like a man, but I see a lost child in your eyes. Much like the son I lost long ago, she smiled. Sasuke reluctantly met her eyes and saw her for the first time. Midnight eyes that matched his own stared down at him and for a second her skin grew smooth and hair came down in ebony waves. He shut his eyes and opened them to see the woman as he had always seen her as. His eyes playing tricks on him, that's what it had to be. You let hatred and revenge cloud your heart for so long you could not see what was happening around you. In the end, you have lost all those around you once more. Her voice went soft, give me your hand. He did so now without hesitation, placing his hand in her small one. She turned his palm upward and cupped her hand over his. You will remember none of this, you will only feel. It will be up to you what happens. I don't understand. She laughed lightly, choice. I'm giving you a choice. She uncapped his hand and his eyes cast themselves downward. A single cherry blossom flower lay in the center of his palm. Do not lose yourself again. He looked up to ask her once more what she meant, but all he saw was a sudden light that seemed to engulf him, and then there was nothing. Sasuke opened his eyes, his bag was packed, and soon he would be gone. A sudden pain filled his heart. What was this feeling? He stood over his dresser and saw the picture of Team 7 that was taken what seemed so long ago. He reached to turn it away when a single blossom fell from his hand, freezing him midair. His eyes watched it twirl and dance till it landed on the dresser in front of the picture. His body felt numb as he saw it was the same color as Sakura's hair. Another pain shot through his heart. What was happening to him? He had enough. Grabbing his bag he left, leaving the picture untouched. He was leaving this village, he had to. It was the only way he could be strong enough to defeat his brother one day. Staying on the path out of the city, hands in his pockets, his mind kept wandering to everything he was leaving behind. Why did it hurt so badly? Why was he thinking about her? Shaking his head he tried to clear his thoughts. He had to focus. He couldn't let himself get distracted with such trivial things. This was the only chance he had. There was nothing left here for him. That's what he had to believe even if it was a lie. Sasuke continued until he saw the one person he wanted to avoid. Just a few feet from him, sitting on one of the many stone benches was his teammate. Sakura. Sasuke was unsure of what to do. He could not stop walking or it would look suspicious, which gave him little time to think. He felt another pang of pain in his chest at the idea of just walking by. Could he stop for a moment and tell her goodbye? Would she ruin his escape from the village? Logical, it was not worth the risk, but he could not bring himself to be logical. She had already spotted him and stood to greet him, a look of fear and panic on her face. He smiled to himself. Instead of walking past her, he stopped just 2 feet from her breath caught in her throat. What are you doing out so late, Sakura? His voice kept the same cold distance as always. I'm just out for some air. Her nervousness is present in each word. You should go home, go to bed. She looked behind him and her face fell into a panic. She saw his backpack, confirming what she had first feared. I can't sleep. She mumbled, and you, Sasuke, why are you out here? I'm out for a walk. He moved to pass her. He couldn't let himself be distracted. That was enough of a goodbye. Suddenly he felt a tug on the sleeve of his shirt. Don't do it, Sasuke-kun, please, we need you here. She paused, I need you here. Her voice soft, breaking gently with each breath. He could feel the faint shudder as she attempted to hold back tears. He turned his head slightly to see her hand clenching the sleeve of his shirt, her head turned away from his view. Sakura. Her name is like poison to his will. He thought of pulling her to him, soothing away her tears, protecting her from all the pain he would cause her, but he did nothing, just stood and stared. Couldn't I make you happy, Sasuke-kun? Couldn't I be the one you trust and turn to when you are in pain? Please. Her voice finally breaking, he could hear the tears fall lightly to the floor like the blood dripping from his heart at the sight. You can't begin to understand why I'm doing this, why I have to do this. His voice is losing patience. You're right, I don't understand. If betraying your village and joining the monster that killed our cage will make you happy, then you should go. Her voice soft, tears still falling. I just want you to be happy, Sasuke-kun. Her grip loosened upon his shirt, even if that doesn't include me. A raging storm of emotions filled his body, making him unsure of what he should do next. His head told him to walk away, to leave just as she was telling him to do, but everything else, every other part of him wanted to bring her close and fall to his knees. The very idea of his life not including her made him want to fall apart. Before he could decide what to do, she spoke once more. Goodbye, Sasuke-kun. I'm sorry I can't give you what you need. Her hand dropped, I hope you find what it is you are looking for. He heard her turn away from him. She would walk away right now and be gone from his life. He would be free to leave this village, and she would most likely give him till morning to get away before she had to report it. And he would most likely never see her again. It was what he wanted, wasn't it? Wasn't it? No. In a quick movement, he threw down his bag, turned and grabbed her by the arm, turning her to face him before pulling her to his body. She gave a small cry of alarm before colliding with his body. His free arm encircled her body, his grip on her arm tightened, fearful that she would escape him. Her head buried in the crook of his neck as her tears broke once more. Her own arm circled him, gripping the back of his shirt tightly. He wasn't sure why, but it felt right to hold her, to comfort her, to be with her. Sasuke loosened his grip on her arm and placed that hand upon the back of her head, letting his finger entwine in her pink locks. I'm sorry. She said nothing, which was good. He still was unsure of his feelings for her. Did he love her or was it something else? did he need her to make him stable? It had always been Sakura that could pull the strings of his emotions. Even in the forest of death, he wanted to fight for her, protect her, to ease her pain. Could it maybe have been before that? The moment they became a team, he had to protect her, be better than Naruto, not just to defeat his brother, but for her. Let's get out of the street. He slowly pulled her away from him, but did not let her go. She looked up and stared at him with teared emerald eyes. He couldn't leave her. He would find another way to complete his goal. Using his free hand, he picked up his bag, and together they walked away, back into the village to his small little apartment to sleep. It was late and they had training in the morning. Sasuke hated walking through the market and other villages. It all seemed so busy and crowded. He couldn't stand this for much longer. Why he chose to go this direction he didn't know, but he wished he hadn't. His eyes turned left to right, eyeing the little shops, looking for shinobi tools of good quality, but finding nothing. He groaned in frustration and pushed his way through once more. How long would it take him to get to the other side? Sasuke, over here. He turned toward the voice and smiled. Sasuke pushed past one last couple and came into a small open area in the street, a small fountain in the center. Sorry it took me so long, these crowds are crazy. It's alright, did you bring me the tea? He held it out to her, yeah. Scoot over. Sakura scooted over on the fountain's edge, taking the tea. Sorry to send you in there, but I had such a craving. She smiled and leaned her head on his shoulder. How are you feeling? He had to ask. His wife was 2 months pregnant with their daughter. The daughter she had always wanted and he didn't want anything to go wrong. I'm fine, really. You shouldn't worry so much. She turned to her left by her feet. Haru, their 3-year-old son, slept, leaning his body against the fountain and her leg, a small bear clutched to his chest. This little guy on the other hand was completely worn out. Sasuke looked down at his son and smiled before looking at his Sakura, and where is Akira? It seemed his eldest son was nowhere in sight. Sakura pointed to a little tented shop. He went in there to take a look. She took a sip of her tea and let out an exhausted breath. We can head to the hotel once he comes out. He said nothing but wrapped a hand around his wife, placing the other upon her currently flat stomach. Soon she would grow and then their family would get larger. He thought back upon the night she had first asked if they could have a daughter. He wasn't sure they could, but he promised they could try. With help from Tsunade they were able to have the little girl that Sakura had wanted. Sasuke hoped she would look just like her mother. Her hand covered his as she looked up at him. A smile grazed her lips. I'm glad you decided to come out with us. I know how you like using your days off to rest and train. So, thank you. Sasuke let a small smile come to his lips. Sometimes, I need a day off from training. He leaned in closer, besides, I need to stay close to you in case something happens. She leaned in closer, her smile larger, you are such a worrywart. Only when it concerns you and the kids. He closed the space between them, letting their lips touch softly for a brief moment. They pulled apart, still holding onto each other, eyes never leaving the gaze of the other, until Sakura looked up at the sky. It's getting late. Where is that boy? I'll go get him, wait here. He's probably just lost track of time. He stood and walked towards the tented shop. Even before he stepped in he could smell the bitterness of herbs mixed with the sweetness of flowers, the smell itself almost familiar. He ducked slightly to enter to see his son sitting on the counter, legs crossed, and his hands in his lap. He never noticed his father had walked in, his distraction was the old woman who stood behind the counter that seemed to be telling him a story. And all the ninjas came together and defeated the darkness to save the village that they all loved. The old woman took a deep breath, then turned to meet his gaze. Well, I'm sorry to say that you've missed our story. The woman had long silver hair tied back loosely, her skin sagged and wrinkled, almost hiding her deep black eyes. His son turned towards him and smiled, Dad, Oba-san tells the best stories. Sasuke approached the counter beside his son, well, that's good to know, but your mother is wondering where you've run off to. Taking his son by the waist, he picked him up and placed him standing on the floor. Sorry Dad, I wanted to finish listening to the story. His son hung his head, eyes cast to the floor. Sasuke put his hand on his son's head, don't worry. He turned to look at the woman, I'm sorry if my son bothered you. She laughed lightly, don't worry about it, I enjoy telling stories, I should apologize for keeping him so long. He ushered his son to the opening. At the door, his son turned and waved at the old woman. Bye, Oba-san, thank you for telling me stories. Before Sasuke could catch him, his son had run off to meet Sakura. He sighed and chuckled lightly, well, thank you for taking care of him. Good day. One more thing, her voice is soft and calming. Sasuke turned confused as the woman smiled at him, are you lost, Ichiha? It was an odd statement to make, but for some unknown reason he felt no confusion. Sasuke looked out of the tent and saw his expecting wife and 2 children waiting beside the fountain for him. A smile came to his lips at the sight, warmth filled him. He turned back to the old woman, "No, I'm exactly where I want to be." If you enjoyed the story, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more what if stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.